evening and welcome to the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. Has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Would you please call the roll?
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
Carlin.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Carnes.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Szilagyi.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, it's my pleasure to invite two students to join us from Roosevelt Elementary School, Aiden Yang and Haley Vang, who will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. Whenever you're ready. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to thank Haley and Aiden and their family members for joining us tonight. Our guiding principle is students first, and we think it's very important to have students at our board meetings so that we always make sure that we remember why we're here and who we are looking to serve and making decisions to benefit the most. So, Haley, thank you so much for coming tonight. This is your certificate as a reminder of your sharing your time and talents at the school board meeting. And Aiden, congratulations, and thank you for coming tonight. If you have other things you need to do tonight, we understand you and your parents and family members might need to leave, but you're welcome to stay for as much of the meeting tonight as you want. And when we have students come from a school, we always have the principal share some things with us about the positive things going on in that particular school. So Mrs. Burkert is here with her part of her fan club to share some of the positive things that are happening at Roosevelt School.
Yeah, so one amazing thing we had
If you'd
today.
like to sit at the microphone.
Sit. Give her a break. That's so cute. You're going to sit too?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this okay if they sit?
Yep.
Of course.
For sure.
So welcome, or hello, and thanks for having us. A couple things that were exciting today was we had the Opera for the Young at our school just today, actually, and Haley and Aiden were part of that experience. We were able to have that based on our school PTO helping to fund that and the SOAR grant. So that was a really cool experience just today. The other big highlight I wanted to talk about was just the success we've had with the Latera tutoring with the students in our school. So all of the students that have been doing the Latera tutoring this year have already made their growth goal in iReady this school year at the midway mark, and many of them have met their stretch goal already as well. So seeing the huge impact of that, they're engaged with it, they like doing it, they want to be meeting with their tutor. And then just something new we've been starting in the last 2-3 weeks is we've been piloting a program with UW Oshkosh where we have work study students come over and do some in-person Latera tutoring with students after school during our lighted schoolhouse hours. So students in 2nd through 5th grade are getting about a 45-minute tutoring session. It kind of varies how many times a week depending on how many times that student may do lighted schoolhouse or how often their tutor can come. But we're hoping that that added additional reading tutoring time will help increase their learning and growth as well.
That's great.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming.
Awesome.
And
Thank you for
sharing.
having us.
Thanks.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Berger. Oh my gosh, too cute. Next, we have recognition of the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. essay winners. This has been an ongoing activity in our district for many years. For part of that time, we had collaborated with UW Oshkosh in celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King Day in conjunction with UW Oshkosh. And joining us tonight is Mrs. Conrad to share that information.
So it's my privilege tonight to announce the 21st annual essay contest winners in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So first what we're going to do is we are going to recognize the individuals from the high school category, the middle school category, and the elementary category. Once we've recognized the 3 winners and 2 for middle level, then we are going to ask the first place winners to come up and read their essay with the prompt. So we're excited to share that. So if we can start with elementary school, it's my privilege to call the following students forward. So in 3rd place for elementary is Samara Sanchez from Mr. Egert's class at Shapiro STEM Academy. Then 2nd place, and if you would come on up, Samara, if you're here tonight, 2nd place is Colin Montour from Oakwood Elementary School. Colin, if you'd like to come forward. And then Nell Salachi from Oakwood Elementary. And then if you would go ahead and receive your certificate, come on up here, and we'll have a little photo opportunity. And is Samara here this evening? And we'll get Samara her certificate. Samara's not here. Okay. And this is Nell Salachi.
Yeah, where's Nell? All right. Now we look
So in the middle school category, we have 2 winners. In 2nd place, we have Maya Marquardt from Merrill Middle School. Is Maya here this evening? I didn't get a chance to see Maya. And in 1st place, we have Roluka Myron from Carl Traeger Middle School. In the high school category, in 3rd place, we have Dominic Sentner from North High School. Is Dominic here this evening? Is he Dominic? In 2nd place, we have Grace Penzenstadler from Oshkosh North. Grace is here.
There's your paparazzi here.
Wow.
Congrats. Thank you.
And in 1st place, we have Conrad Bolis Jensinski from Oshkosh North. So now we're going to ask each of the 1st place winners to come and read their essay. First up, we'll have from elementary school, we'll have Nell. Nell will join me at the table here. And so for the elementary school students, their prompt is as follows. Edward Everett Hale said, "I am only one, but I am one. I can do everything, but I can do something. The something I ought to do, I can do, and I will." And so from what you have learned about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., do you think he was one person who was able to do something to change life in America? Why or why not? Be as specific as you can about what you think Dr. King may or may not have changed. Explain how you can help make this change happen. So here is Nell.
Edward Everett Hale once said, "I'm only one, but I am one. I can't do everything, but I can do something. The something I ought to do, I can do and will." I believe that Martin was one person, but others shared the same dream, that people of all races will have equal rights. People worked with him day and night, rain and sun, and were not always treated with respect, and I believe that everyone should be treated fairly. Martin was always peaceful with others and never tried to hurt others once. I understand how he felt. I live in a big family, and I've been tempted to hurt back many times. It takes guts to stand up for what you believe in and never give up or give in. He knew if he did not do anything, nothing would change. People would still be living in silence without him, and they would not have equal rights as others. But sometimes people do bad things because they are scared. So I believe that white people may have been scared of him and his followers, and what they could do to them, and they were only thinking about them, and that should never happen to anyone, and they should all be treated fairly. I believe I can make change in many things by helping all LGBTQ people and making them feel accepted. I know that everyone isn't equal, and they should be treated fairly. I believe if I just sit around and don't do anything, people will keep getting hurt. I believe that there are many people that would like to help and stop all racist comments and remarks. So what I can do to change is that make people aware. Sometimes all it takes is one person with an idea, and I know that starts with me, and I can change many things and help many people. I feel if people take a look around, they would realize how many things can be changed for the better. Another thing I can change is less drugs and alcohol. If I were to make people aware of what's happening to civilization and think about how many people would stop drug overdose and how much better the world would be if everyone stopped. I know that not everyone will or is willing to stop, but it could help so many people with health issues. People may not realize it, but if everyone is willing to help, so many things could change, and so many people would have better lives, and others after us too. I truly believe that change is a good thing, and it is very helpful and can improve lots of lives. In conclusion, Martin Luther King Jr. was someone who changed many things in the world and helped others realize his goal, and many others shared the same dream as him. He wanted equality and wanted respect. He never fought back with his hands, only his words and his presence. As many others hurt him, he never once hurt back. I believe if you want something, you have to work for it. It will never be handed to you gently. Martin always gave his best. He was an example of what peace really is. I'm truly inspired by him in the way he always gave his best shot, even when he knew it could hurt him or it wouldn't be enough. Everyone is their own person, and no one is perfect or even close. People can and will make change. When things are made, they're not always made to stay the same forever. They're made so someone out there with a dream can change or fix it. When Martin grew up, things were not so good for him. He never let that stop him from giving his all, and he really changed things for the better. He let people see things from his point of view. I really hope my essay can help you realize what can be changed in this world. I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you, Nell.
And by the way, Nell is in 4th grade. So next up is our middle school student, Raluca Myron. Raluca, come on up. And so for middle school, what we asked students was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was the most famous civil rights leader of the 50s and 60s. He became so famous that he has a national holiday named after him. But there are many other men and women who deserve recognition for their work in the struggle for civil rights. Choose one of them and compare him or her to Dr. King. Compare and contrast the impact that Dr. King and the person you have chosen to write about had on how we live today, and how can you incorporate what they accomplished into your life to make today's world a better place.
When you think of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., you might think brave, intelligent, and kind. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was all of these things, and so was Madam C.J. Walker. Madam C.J. Walker was the first black woman millionaire in the United States. In addition, Madam C.J. Walker was an activist for civil rights at her time. Both Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Madam C.J. Walker were visionaries and still both inspire people today with all of the hard work they both have done through the struggle of gaining civil rights. Madam C.J. Walker started off making homemade hair products for black women. When starting this business, she even created her own technique called the Walker system. This system helped with scalp preparation and many other things. In 1908, Madam C.J. Walker opened her own beauty school. This was a big accomplishment for a black woman at that time. Madam C.J. Walker used her businesswoman status to fight for civil rights. She also donated money to help stop the lynching of black people. Madam C.J. Walker is an inspiration to all people today. She exceeded expectations and fought all of the boundaries in her way. She shows us that we don't have to be confined to the expectations of others. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is the most famous civil rights activist. His I Have a Dream speech was a historical moment that will be remembered for years to come. His dream was that white people and black people would be equal to each other. Because of all the work and protesting that he did, he helped make the United States a better place for people of color. We can all learn from him that we should keep persevering even in the toughest hours. Whenever I see an injustice done to people of color because of their skin color, like the horrible death of George Floyd and many others, I think of what Madam C.J. Walker and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would have done. They would have stood up for what is right. They would have taken action protesting on the streets. They would have tried to make this world a better place even when it felt like no one was listening. These two very important people have inspired me in more ways than known. I have learned from Madam C.J. Walker that women deserve a seat at the table and the world needs changing and my generation needs to be the one to do it. From Dr. King, I have learned to never be afraid to stand up for important matters and that absolutely every single person is equal, no matter their skin color. In Madam C.J. Walker's words, don't sit down and wait for the opportunity to come. Get up and make them. The impact these two civil rights pioneers had on the world today is tremendous. Absolutely everyone can learn some lesson from them. We learn not only how they fought for civil rights, but how they taught us to continue to fight on unjust topics. I hope that their lives will be remembered forever.
Yes. Thank you so much. And Raluca is in 6th grade.
Thank you. I think your remarks are especially significant today because March 8th is International Women's Day, and you chose to speak and share today with a very significant woman, so thank you for that.
And finally, our high school category. Conrad will join us up here. For high school students, the prompt was, Dr. King said the following in his I Have a Dream speech in 1963. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. Incorporating a quote from Dr. King, describe in writing how you can get involved, take a stand, support Dr. King's mission and vision for equality, and inspire a more equitable, inclusive, and peaceful society. Conrad.
If you are not willing to make sacrifices to stand with your beliefs, do you truly hold that opinion at all? While many people say that they will face the consequences to speak up for their opinions, the reality often shows a different side. Kids say that they'll stand up to bullies, but incidences often go unreported, and they engage in activities such as reposting the act on social media that continue the cycle. They say that they'll report it when they see a kid who exhibits suicidal thoughts, yet they stand by and do nothing about it. This ignorance shows that, although it may seem easy to stop these acts, a lack of conviction still runs rampant within a school setting and society in general. And while you or I may never face a situation where you have to hold your beliefs with your life on the line, you or I could still make an impact to continue Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s goal of a more equitable society. By making an effort to speak up, to stop bullying, to stop injustice in the workplace, and to stand against equality anywhere, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, and to fight the urge to stay a bystander and instead to become a leader, anyone can continue his dream. When thinking of people who stood up for what they believe in, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. immediately springs to mind. During a time when people within the U.S. were very split on the topic of civil rights, he still continued to fight for them, even though the majority of the United States disliked his very existence. According to a Gallup poll taken in 1966, over 60% of the country had an unfavorable opinion of the civil rights leader. Not only did individual people dislike Dr. King, but the U.S. government also made direct efforts to curb his movement. For example, the FBI sent a letter to King in 1964, blackmailing him for allegedly cheating on his wife, and it encouraged him to commit suicide. Yet, through the challenges brought by both the general populace, along with the institutions of the U.S. government, King still fought for equal rights and opportunity for all. He also encouraged his supporters to do the same, to truly take a stance and not to become a bystander. This steadfast belief in doing the right thing and not becoming a person who turns a blind eye truly separated King from people who could have gotten a spot in the history books, yet did not have the boldness to earn it. He held his steadfast beliefs until his tragic assassination while traveling to support striking workers in 1968. While inspiring figures such as Dr. King make it seem easy to take a stance when it matters, the truth shows that it's more difficult than it looks. Even when it looks easy to take action and do something about a problem, people tend not to do so. This psychological phenomenon, known as the bystander effect, theorizes that when in the presence of other bystanders, individuals become less likely to help a person in need, like in the 1964 stabbing of Kitty Genovese. This case had many witnesses that saw the crime occur. However, no one called the police until one of Genovese's friends found her. This incident, along with the bystander effect, also applies to real life, rather than only seeing application in the court of law. It shows that people do not show the initiative to step up and do the right thing because they hope that someone else will. So even in a situation as easy as calling the police when a horrific crime has occurred, no one stepped up and did the right thing because the bystanders relied on someone else to do it for them. You can still see this in all aspects of society today. People fail to stand up for the ideas they believe in or for the people who need it because of the bystander effect, as the perceived negative consequences expose their lack of conviction. If you look around, you can see this lack of conviction in any setting. The workplace, where people don't stand up to a tyrannical boss in the fear of getting fired. In politics, where politicians fear upsetting their constituents and losing their next election. Even in high schools, where bullying goes unreported because people lack the strength to do the right thing. This lack of strength continues the problem as the complicit action of people allows the perpetrator to continue and the problem to build. While you or I might never find ourselves in the same position as Dr. King, where it feels like half of a country wants us dead, there are still many things we can do to uphold the belief of taking a stance, even when you don't hold the popular opinion. When it comes to doing something that you truly believe in, you need to take a stance and defend that opinion. It doesn't matter if the stance seems minuscule, like disagreeing with a rule a teacher sets, or something much greater like fighting against systemic injustice you see in society. Even though the consequences may seem insurmountable, it becomes a responsibility to stand for your opinion, even in times of great strife. As Dr. King once said, "The hottest place in hell is reserved for those who remain neutral in great times of moral conflict."
Yes, so we just, the Oshkosh Area School District Education Foundation and our staff really appreciate the hundreds of essays that were submitted, and this is just an example of some of the incredible thoughts in student writing here in the Oshkosh Area School District. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. With that, we'll move on to the land acknowledgement.
All right, so land acknowledgements. As we gather today, we would like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh, we are on the ancestral lands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and Menominee Indian tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and pay respect to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship of these lands.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Next, we will move on to board and administrative reports, starting with the board president's report. Oh, I'm sorry. I even circled that to make sure I wouldn't forget it. Approval of agenda. Is there any board member who wishes to move the location of something on the agenda to another part of the agenda, up or down? No. All right, so we will accept the agenda as written by acclamation. Next, we will move on to board and administrative reports. We'll start with the board president's report. I have a very short report in that we want to recognize and honor several individuals who have collectively devoted decades of service to the district and its students and our community, and acknowledge that we truly will miss them, but we also understand their interest in moving on to another age and stage of life, and that being retirement. And we certainly hope that that retirement will be long, healthy, and happy. So we honor Teresa Burris, who is retiring as a first grade teacher from Roosevelt Elementary, who has been with the district for 28 years. Vicki Ganser, a school secretary who has served in several positions across the district, who will be retiring after 26 years. Sherry Jensema, a school social worker, currently serving Washington Elementary, Carl Traeger Elementary, Reed Elementary, and Carl Traeger Middle, who will be retiring after 10 years of service in our district. Kathy Riederer, an IST mathematics support teacher who is currently at Merrill Elementary and has been with the district for 22 years. And finally, Ann Trzynski, a literacy coach who is currently serving at Carl Traeger Elementary School. I know she's served at other buildings in the district as a classroom teacher, and Ann will be leaving us after 26 years. I just want to wish, again, all of these dedicated employees a long, healthy, and happy retirement for the positive impact they've had on the students of this district. Does any other board member wish to comment on any of these retirees? Okay, it does require a majority vote to approve these, and we will do that later on the agenda. So with that, we will move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Davis.
All right, so we will start with Tessa in What's Up with the Wildcats at Oshkosh West. So Tessa?
Yeah, so I will be sharing what's been going on at Oshkosh West in the last month. So we'll start with sports. We had two of our wrestlers, Ryland and Garth. They both competed at state. And our combined gymnastics team with Oshkosh North won their conference meet, and two of our Oshkosh West gymnasts, Olivia and Lydia, advanced to the state competition. Very exciting, last Friday, our 16-seed boys varsity basketball team won their regional game against the #1 seed at Eau Claire Memorial. And all three of our bowling teams, boys varsity and junior varsity, as well as girls, competed at state last weekend, and the girls placed 4th. Looking at some clubs, our Wave Robotics team won the Sustainability Award at the Duluth Regional Competition, and our DECA team competed at state. In the arts, rehearsal has started for our spring play, which will be 67 Cinderellas. And there is an art show this Saturday at the Masonic Temple where various Oshkosh West art students will have their work featured. Student Council has been making a big impact recently. At our February blood drive, we collected 73 units of blood, and we just recently won the WASC Spirit of Excellence Award for Region 3. The Green Alarm, Oshkosh West's environmental club, has been competing in the Trex Recycling Challenge. We've been collecting plastic film, and that has been going very well. Our prom theme was recently decided, and that will be black tie, and prom will be held on May 6th. And finally, we just had 5 of our teachers recognized, and they won the Celebrate Oshkosh grants from the Oshkosh Community Foundation that they'll use to make an impact in our school.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tessa. And Owen with the update from the Spartans.
Hi, thank you for having me today. So here's the Oshkosh North March update. So I want to just start this off by talking about what's going on in the communities program at Oshkosh North. So our C2 section, which is the 2 older grades, are going into a busy spring. The juniors are going into their junior projects, which they do every year. This year there will be emphasis on healthy living, outdoor engagement, school branding, and personal relationships and connections. And then the seniors in communities have also started participating in their internships throughout the community. And that also involves bringing community members in for their community connects. The second week of February, we had our annual Sasquatch Days. So this is a week of events that we have at North. This included dress-up days, a Sasquatch scavenger hunt throughout the school, and then we ended the week off with a pep assembly that included a seniors versus staff basketball game and meal pumps. That same week, we had our musical Big Fish at the Grand Opera House. This was directed by Bridget Duffy Ulrich. This was the first time this show was performed in Oshkosh, and it included digital projections for the first time instead of major set pieces. The next week, our Black Student Union hosted an assembly for the school. This assembly was themed around hidden figures throughout Black history, recognizing the lesser known figures. I know we talked about MLK, but there's a lot that aren't as well known. This assembly included students and Dr. Simpson from UWO who spoke, and a lot of it had an emphasis on advocating for a more representative staff at Oshkosh North. With that, our sports seasons from the winter are coming to a close, so I included pictures from both the boys and girls basketball teams along with their records. And then we also had boys swim and gymnastics mentioned did very well, combined with Oshkosh West, and then our wrestling team. This last weekend, our bowling team went to state. Also this last weekend, musicians from all sections of the music department participated in a solo and ensemble festival, and several will be going to the state competition in a few months. And then we also have our North Star newspaper, which is continuing to put out a lot of different articles. They have a lot of great writers right now. One of their most recent articles that's very popular is how Oshkosh North students feel about Fridays off. If you want to read more into that, I put a QR code in there.
Nice.
You can also just look it up on Google, North Star. And then over the last 2 days, juniors at North and West have been participating in the ACT test. So I'm sure all that stress has been relieved by now. And then looking ahead before we come next month, the Oshkosh North and West choirs will be having a combined Pops concert at Oshkosh West next week. And then the music department has a New York City trip. They'll be leaving next week as well. And then in April, our Polaris Honor Society Oshkosh North will be hosting a spring fling for the first time. So this will include an Easter bunny and an egg hunt at the school. And then along with that, our spring sports are already starting with practices. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks to both of you for the comprehensive reports. So well done.
Excellent.
All right, now for the superintendent's good news report. A lot of great things going on across the district. So Oshkosh North staff members recently had an opportunity to dine in the dark. The experience was organized by North students who are visually impaired as a way to help staff better understand the challenges they navigate every day. It was an impactful reminder on how unique we are, how important it is to understand the realities of those around you. So thanks for everyone for that meaningful opportunity. Our Wave Robotics team recently traveled to the Northern Lights Regional in Minnesota. Students designed and built a custom swerve drive for this season and debuted the component for the first time at the competition. Many teams and engineers were interested in learning more about the swerve drive and are eager to learn from our talented students. At the competition, the combined team of Spartans and Wildcats also received the Team Sustainability Award out of the 60 teams that competed. Certainly looking forward to an exciting season for Wave Robotics, so congratulations. As a district, we are grateful for the generosity of the Mid-Morning Kiwanis Club of Oshkosh and its commitment to supporting our students in need, especially through their Project Undercover initiative. This year, the group donated 13,000 pairs of underwear and 7,000 pairs of socks to our schools for students of need. That was a total value of $15,000. This incredible donation is one way our students and families are able to have their basic needs met so they can focus on learning and becoming successful in school. Congratulations to Yushu Zhao, a fourth grader at Carl Traeger Elementary. He won the Oshkosh Recreation Department recent coloring contest, having beautifully colored the new mascot, Rexy, in colors that sync with their logo. His artwork, which is seen on the screen here, will be displayed on the cover of the Rec Department's summer guide, which will be arriving in mailboxes in April. So registration for summer recreation programs will begin in early May, so please stay tuned for that. So congratulations. We were grateful to have nearly 70 community members join us for our community conversation last week. It was a great way for our community to learn more about our continuous improvement efforts and brainstorm ways to partner with and support the work we are doing to ensure all students succeed in the Oshkosh Area School District. Kindergartners and fifth grade reading buddies at Shapiro STEM Academy recently came together to celebrate their 100th day of school. The students played their way through 7 different learning stations, including measuring collections of 100, counting out 100 Cheerios, reading books, building with 100 cups, doing 100 exercises, and much more. It's always great to see kids having fun while learning and growing in their school community. Merrill Middle School hosted its final winter games, a friendly school-wide competition. The annual event was a blast for staff and students, but it won't be the last. The school community is already looking forward to the inaugural Bell Phillips Middle School winter games next school year. And finally, just a reminder of our COVID protocol, which can be found on our website. And then my places that I've been over the last couple of weeks. Again, I just want to thank everyone for their hospitality. It's really been amazing to be able to move across our district and then also to be able to spend a day down in Madison advocating on behalf of our students and staff. So, and that completes the Superintendent's Good News report for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. We'll next move on to District Administrator supplemental reports, starting with the referendum update with Mr. Fox.
Good evening. I'm pleased tonight to have another opportunity to share with the board the progress of Bell Phillips. As indicated in your report that I shared with you, that we are on budget and we are on target as far as the project schedule. We're completed in the last 30 days, and again, a lot of this will be a little repetitive, but continued installation of the building mechanical systems, that's your heating, your ventilation, your air conditioning, is going strong in building section A and B, which is your academic tower. Academic tower 3rd floor structural, that's your structural block, is your CMU. That is all complete. Your non-load bearing walls are complete. The metal for the roof is in place, and the roof is going on as indicated toward the bottom of the bullet points. Exterior spray foam insulation is continuing on the academic towers. Building section C penthouse and clear story, metal siding, exterior glass, which I'm going to show you pictures of in a moment, is complete. Library exterior glass, which is just amazing when you walk into the library, is complete. Building section floor ply roofing, as I had just indicated, is nearing completion. Hopefully they finish tomorrow before the snow, but they are very close. The field house and cafeteria ceiling paint is complete. The walls are completely painted, at least the white in the field house. And we'll talk about some things that are going on in that space here shortly. Electrical power has been converted from temporary to permanent power, which is a significant milestone in Val Phillips. So starting at the top left, again, the first two pictures, top left, top center. This is a picture of the roof of the academic tower before the roofer's 4-ply system has gotten that far. So you can see a nice indication of what we call the pan deck on the far left. You can see the roofers moving from the back of the screen toward you. In the middle is again the roof, and that is a picture of the mechanical penthouse, and that's where the ventilation system will sit. That takes care of first, second, and third floor of the academic tower. To your far right on the top is a picture from the academic tower roof to the second floor mechanical penthouse. The chiller will be installed between those two walls that you see kind of hidden, standing right now to hide the chiller. And in the distance you can see the clear story. So that's all that metal siding that has been installed. Bottom left is the last section of Val Phillips to be built with the structural block. You're looking at the band, choir, orchestra area. And to your left of that picture, you can see the gymnasium, and then that piece in between the standing wall and the gymnasium is the opening to the events lobby, which will really be a pretty amazing piece when that's finished as people enter from the parking lot and navigate their way to the cafeteria. Middle bottom is a view of the south side of the school. So it's north of the gym, but south of the school proper, building section C, and that's the cafeteria. So you can see what the stone looks like on that particular elevation. And then bottom right, you can see the western elevation pointed toward Jackson. You'll see that stone continue along the bottom, and then the ornate brickwork that's going to wrap around the building on that second level. As we move inside of the building, top left is a nice view of the gymnasium. They peel off the plastic. You can get a nice look at the ductwork in yellow. Everything else right now is sitting in white. Bottom left is again that picture of the cafeteria, or the IMC. The picture does not do it justice. It's just amazing when you walk in, and this entire building with all the glass is quite incredible. The bathrooms are being installed with all the tile work, and in the middle is a picture of the floor going in with, you can see the whites and the ribbons and the different colors that they're introducing into those spaces. Top left, you can see this is building section C. We've been talking about this for a while. It's a little bit more advanced than the rest of the building. This happens to be a special ed room. You can see the casework is being installed, the ceiling grid is installed, much of the ceiling tile is already installed. So those rooms are nearing completion. In fact, floors will be going into those areas shortly. And then bottom right is a view of the cafeteria, mainly looking at the ceiling. Ceiling painting is complete, and the cloud installation has already started in that space. So over the next 30 days, we expect to see continued installation, again, of the mechanical systems, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, in building sections A, B, and the field house. Wall finishes in sections C and D, we anticipate completion. Finished roofing system, we anticipate will be complete in the academic tower. The structural and CMU will be complete in the events lobby, as I had shown you. In fact, the steel is already in place, and that pan deck that I had shown you on the academic tower is already installed for the events lobby, just waiting for the 4-ply roofing. Ceramic tile installation in the bathrooms, I had just shown you a picture of. That will continue in C and D for all the single-use bathrooms and group bathrooms. Casework installation, which I had shown you a picture of in the special ed, will continue in sections C and D. Ceiling grid, tile, and building installation in D, which is, again, D is your office area, administrative area. And the cafeteria cloud ceiling, which has begun, will remain ongoing into April. One item that I omitted from this presentation that I think is worth noting is that over spring break, Oshkosh Area School Tech Department will be moving our data center from the basement of Merrill into the Val Phillips Data Center, which I feel is a significant milestone for Oshkosh area schools, not necessarily Meyer Construction. So it's a good job for our tech department, and just, again, a nice milestone to hit and have that data center up, running. Kind of shows us that we're nearing some sort of completion. So, are there any questions?
What's the
Well, this is a full ceiling, so a cloud ceiling wouldn't have edges. It kind of tends to float in the middle, and then the edges are painted. It gives it's kind of a nice architectural effect.
Any other board questions for Mr. Fox? Thank you. It's good to hear we're on budget and on time. We're under budget and on time. Thank you. Next, we have a budget variance ESSER funds update with Mr. Nehans.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So the budget variance report and ESSER fund report that I had turned in is tracking much like all the prior 3 or 4 months that we've been giving out. I want to focus the highlights tonight really on the projected budget surplus and kind of have an explanation of what that means and typical kind of uses that we would be looking at the district, especially at this time of year as we start getting towards the end of the fiscal year. So the anticipated budget surplus right now is $4 million. So things to remember within that is these are for expenses for this year. They're not really helping for the budgets for following years as this is one-time money. So what we've done in the past is we've invested into Fund 46. That helps us collect extra state aid as well. You only get state aid on expenditures. You don't get it by building up a fund balance or deferring expenses to the next year. So I've been working for the last several months with 2 departments in particular that have some extremely serious needs that the district has kind of deferred for a number of years. We've got the Career and Tech Ed department and the Music department. The Music department really has a really aging inventory of instruments that we have that we really need to start seriously looking at replacing. So I've been working with that department to come up with not only the instruments that need to get replaced, but getting them on an actual replacement schedule. So we're trying to plan this out. The instrument needs, that dollar amount's going to come north of $1 million. So it is a significant need for us and something we really need to start looking at planning and creating a replacement schedule. Similar situation in the Career and Tech Ed. We've got a lot of aging equipment. We really haven't had a replacement schedule. We've been building that and working on that. Again, that cost is going to come well north of $1 million. And something that we need to do. Both of these departments would be areas, and the Music department itself is going to be coming to the Facility and Finance Committee in the next month or 2 to present what their solution is to start getting a replacement schedule for what they have and to start building a new need in for them. One of the things that is also kind of special with especially these 2 departments is the district and in our efforts to try to create better equity for students overall. In the past few years, we've been reducing our student fees to create a better opportunity for participation. That's also put a budget crunch on both of these departments as they used to rely on the student fees and the instrument rental fee to help them with repairs and replacements to help build their stock. That's something that will be coming within the presentations to the Facility and Finance of how we long-term manage their budgets and fill their budgets as a district to make sure that we are sustainable within those programs for the future and to make sure we don't have to try to create a fee system again. Another area that we really need to look at with the budget surplus money right now is also we've shifted how we have managed the furniture and the capital Smaller capital needs in the buildings, those used to be coming out of their own building budget, and their building budgets weren't given a higher allocation for that. They were just expected to make that work. We have better bargaining power if we purchase furniture in bulk from the district and disseminate it that way. So we have started shifting those expenses to really have the building budgets truly be used for instructional expenses and have them allocated truly for the students in their building, and done that way. So we are going to need to tap some money from the district to be able to make sure that we have enough money to fund their furniture needs as a district. Along with that, the last part of what we would anticipate truly using our expected surplus for would be, again, to continue to try to build Fund 46. Right now we have about a $10 million balance in Fund 46. Ideally, it'd be double that. You really need to have that fund for a district our size, a $140 million budget. You really want that Fund 46 to be there so we can tap that for ongoing maintenance and deferred maintenance needs. They would just be put into that, so deferred maintenance really just doesn't truly become deferred. And then we also have a cushion there. Instead of tapping our regular general fund balance, we'd have Fund 46 to fall back on if we had a boiler or something that we had an emergency for. So we have some work to do on that side as well to really try to shore that up. And again, that helps us capture state aid, which helps keep our property taxes locally lower. That was a lot. So were there any questions on any of that?
I have a quick question if nobody else does.
Oh, Mrs. Sorry, Mrs. Carlin.
I just had a quick question about the student instruments. So we used to collect $50 for them to use an instrument for the year, correct? And we're not doing that anymore?
Correct.
And so we have less money to service these instruments and whatnot? Is that correct? And we can't use Fund 47, or even though it's a maintenance issue, it's not applicable for instruments or something?
Correct. Well, Fund 46,
46.
is a capital improvement fund, and the way we as a district define capital is a $5,000 minimum per item. So we would have some instruments that we would be able to put into the Fund 46 if we choose. I guess the way I've been looking at it right now is it's a little bit cleaner if we keep truly more capital items in Fund 46.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And have a different funding source for the instruments in that. And again, that's what we're going to be presenting to Facility and Finance of. For the music department, this is how our plan is moving forward and have a sustainable situation for that.
Awesome, thank you. But the general feeling is that we do not want to charge students for these instruments anymore. Is that correct?
Correct. We've really made a strong effort, and the board's approved the effort of making sure we reduce student fees.
Yes.
So everywhere we can, the plan is not to bring them back. It's how do we get creative in my office to make sure we fund it.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Mr. Kearns.
I think it's great that the idea for the surplus, to put that towards the instruments and the tech ed areas. I could be mistaken, but the surplus in the last couple of years have financed new athletic fields at each high school. Is that fair? Is it different funds maybe, but different?
Partially, they did a little bit. It was part involved in that. We used a combination for the field at North. A portion of that did come from Fund 46, which was part of a surplus, but not all of it. The field at Oshkosh West is primarily going to be Fund 46. We could choose to have Fund 80, the Recreation Department, fund a portion of it. Right now, we haven't. At this point, we're still looking at Fund 46 to truly fund that.
I guess I do appreciate that we're looking at, all different ways within our district, whether it be music or tech ed or sports, that we're sharing the wealth. Mm-hmm. I mean, and making sure that we're doing that. So I appreciate you your foresight to look to those areas. So thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from board members, including our student reps?
Well, it's always good to have a surplus, and we do have a need to replace music equipment, and because our music numbers have dropped, and we want to make that more accessible and affordable so that we can get those numbers up. So I really look forward to seeing the plan so that we can fund these instruments initially, but then long term so that we can sustain our music programs at the level that we all want them to be at. So I look forward to seeing that plan brought to facilities and finance.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Anyone else?
I'll just say.
Yes.
I'd like to applaud the district's efforts in reducing student fees because they do pose a barrier. So I applaud that policy, as well as support and echo what we've been saying around using part of the surplus money towards replacing instruments. I think that's extremely important to have access for those students in music.
So I have a quick question.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Szilagyi.
Yeah, it's okay. I know we don't have all of the instruments that some of the kids use in band. Is there an effort to get some of the instruments? Because those students are paying a rental fee to a private company for those instruments.
Yeah, and I don't want to give the impression that we are going to provide every student with a free instrument. That's not what we are doing. We still are strongly encouraging and have a need for families that can afford to rent or purchase to do that. Actually, what has happened as I've talked to, especially the band department, what's ended up happening as a more of a common trend lately has been 10, 15 years ago, we didn't really rent clarinets, flutes, alto saxophones. Those are fairly common. In the instrument world, they can be fairly inexpensive comparatively for instruments. We have seen an increase of students and families that need to rent those. So our inventory of those has gone up. But it still is fairly limited. We still are primarily at both high schools, in the middle schools, really renting percussion instruments and some of the what would be a little bit more one-off instruments. Your different kinds of, when you get into the deeper saxophones, some of the tubas, those kind of instruments, French horn potentially, some of those instruments that those costs start going up significantly to get some of those, and they're really not instruments that you would typically see a typical household try to purchase.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that clarity. That makes sense, that it's basically about the ease of getting access to the instrument.
Yes. Again, Hyde, our partner locally is Hyde Music Stores, and they've got various different programs for families and rental and ownership and how they can do that. And that's typically the first place we suggest to go. And then if the family does have a need, then we do what we can to get it.
Thank you, Mrs. Szilagyi. Anyone else? Well, it looks like the Facilities and Finance Committee is looking forward to the discussion that will again come back to the board. So thank you, Mr. Nehans, for everything you provided us with this evening.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
We have two other reports. I'd call them special reports tonight because not only are they significant, but because they involve our students, our high schoolers. So we're going to start with the 4A, the Biodigester Project at Oshkosh West High School with Hannah Chung. So Hannah, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for your time today.
So I just want to welcome Hannah to the board meeting. I had the opportunity to hear Hannah give her presentation at our downtown Rotary, and so she received rave reviews from the Rotary Club, as this project actually was just getting kicked off at that point. So now it's on its completion, and so again, just want to welcome Hannah to to the school board.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, hello, my name is Hannah Chung. I'm currently a senior at Oshkosh West High School, and I also serve as the co-founder and president of the Green Alarm, which is our environmental club. I know Tessa will be touching on that a little bit later. And I'm also the team lead for the Wave Robotics team, and we recently won one of the first sustainability awards in the world at our recent regional. But here today, I'm going to talk about my Earth for Us biodigester project. So we can get started with it. So just a little bit about this project. Essentially what it is a partnership between the Oshkosh Area School District and the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. And that a transfer of food waste from the 9,000 students at the OASD to the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh biodigesting facilities. So what this would entail is an estimated 123 metric ton increase of food waste sent to the biodigesting facilities, producing an additional approximate 40,000 kilowatt hours and reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 323 metric tons per year. And all of these estimates were completed. I actually created this project as my final project. I took a course on the design of renewable energy projects at Harvard University this summer. And so I created the estimates for this project from that and decided to see how this would work out in real life and went ahead with a pilot test at Oshkosh West High School. But at its core, this is a project to expand the renewable energy supply source and create a cross-educational platform for future sustainable habits at Oshkosh. So a little bit about the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. Its biodigesting facility is extremely unique. It's actually the first commercial dry fermentation anaerobic digester system in the Americas. And as a result of this, and also UWO's environmental endeavors, they recently were awarded one of 4 U.S. Department of Education Green Ribbon Awards. So about this project, this would aim to increase the metric tons of food waste sent to the biodigester from 10,000 to about 10,123 metric tons. And the facilities, the reason why I chose this project was because we have such an incredible and unique opportunity at hand that's very close to our schools here. There's like a 7-mile radius approximately between the Oshkosh Area School District and all of the biodigesting facilities. And also with our existing connections with Oshkosh as well. So for my estimates about the annual electrical output and the amount of food waste that would be produced, I curated these numbers from national averages about elementary schoolers, middle schoolers, and high school students and how much food waste they would produce, and then adjusted that to how many days were in our school year. So this is a graphic here of the carbon emission reductions of CO2. So this takes into consideration the carbon emissions output that would be created from the food waste that would be sitting in the landfill, as well as the amount of energy, that 40,000 kilowatt hours, how much CO2 it would take to produce that energy. So it is a combined version of those that accumulates to 323 metric tons, and that also does not include the CO2 emissions from transportation of the food waste as well. And this is just another representation here of some of the ecosystem damages that would be reduced and health damages and disability-adjusted life years. And this is the old electricity mix that I used in my calculations. This currently goes off of Oshkosh, like the Winnebago area, the current electricity mix, what we use here, in comparison to 100% biogas, which would be what the biodigester energy would come from. So some addressed issues in creating this project and developing a pilot test. So one of the most important things to me would be the education on proper collection. I've studied a bit of environmental education in the past. I've written some research papers. I took a course in sustainable development also at Harvard University in the past. So I know that environmental education is really a key portion of this project since it is so student oriented. Students are in charge of separating their food waste when they're done eating with lunch. So in order to really get that student involvement in there, I focused a lot on student engagement and education, and I did this through engaging videos, and also we'll touch on this a little bit later, but I also used student volunteers to really start to lead the change and get the peer-to-peer interaction. But besides that, clean transportation of food waste, as I mentioned before, all of the figures you saw before, they accounted for the carbon emissions that would be produced by the transportation. So currently, the UWO facilities, they have a truck that they use that runs on diesel. So it is not on compressed natural gas or anything similar, so it does produce some carbon emissions while it is driving en route to pick up the food waste. But through my calculations, I have found that it's a very minimal amount, and the amount of CO2 that we would prevent from going into the landfills in the first place would greatly outnumber the amount that would be produced from the transportation. And in dealing with food waste storage, so this is about after we collect the food waste, where would we place all of it? And currently in my pilot program, we did daily pickups, but we also used special bins, and I know the UWO, they have these special sort of collection bins as well, landfill bins that have locks that can be customized. That would be the solution there. And then in dealing with the digestate, so after the entire methane extraction process, basically at UWO, it's a 28-day cycle. They take in the food waste, and then it breaks down into compost, and the methane from that process is extracted, and it's ran through a generator that creates the green energy. But after that, we still have the digestate, which is usually used as like compost, and UWO deals with that sustainably. They're currently working with some local landscaping companies, and they take that out as like mulch, so the digestate would not be an issue there. So now moving on to the pilot test that I recently completed at Oshkosh West High School. So the pilot test was a 5-week test, and it was a combined 19 days. As I mentioned before, with education, we focused a lot on homeroom education, so taking time out of our homerooms to really go through as a school on focusing on where this data will be collected, how this data would be collected, and why we were doing it in the first place. I really wanted to highlight that and bring that attention to the student body, as this is a student-led project, and really getting the engagement right from the start. And in terms of area, Oshkosh West currently has 2 lunchrooms and 2 lunch periods, and my project also had bags and receptacles at the O and F room facilities, as well as the 4A and 4B lunch periods. And in terms of supervisions, we had 23 student volunteers, and they supervised 3 locations per lunchroom. So as you can see here, there's a picture of myself and some of our student volunteers. They had the same lunch period as their volunteer sessions, and they sat there and they helped answer questions that were in regards to the project. And I actually really enjoyed having the student volunteers there. In my previous meetings with the Oshkosh staff, Oshkosh West staff, they had mentioned that our staff are already very busy with their work in lunchroom supervision, so we wanted to make sure that there was a solution to that. And really bringing in the students there, I think it added an element of sort of like friendly interactions. Students were more likely to reach out, ask questions if they were confused on what could be biodigested, and it was sort of a safe space, and it allowed for more interactions and communications. And this right here is just sort of a graphic of, this is the F room that I created. So the blue circles represent the food waste bins that were used for food collection, and then the gray are the trash bins, and then the little stars are our star student volunteers. So as you can see, we had basically 3 main regions in each lunchroom. We tried to keep it kind of spread out to queue with the traffic. That's usually at the end of lunchtime. And we also focused our efforts by the tray station, where that is usually where all the hot lunch students go to return their trays. But in total, from this 19-day process, our student volunteers, we had combined hours of service of 637 hours, and as I mentioned before, peer-to-peer interaction and learning, and this was really student-led change. We had volunteers come from all different parts of the school. We had our Rotary Club that was very involved, O'Neill National Honor Society, Student Council, and of course the Green Alarm, but we also had students just from the general student body who had seen this interaction at lunch and wanted to know how they could help. And so these are some graphs of the collection weight every day, of the food waste, and also the contamination rate. So from our 19 days of collection, we collected 1,305 pounds of food waste, and we reduced carbon-2 emissions by 1.6 metric tons, just in those 19 days alone. And so as you can see, we averaged an approximate 60 pounds of food waste per day. And our contamination rate, this is something I really want to highlight. As you can see at the beginning, it was ranging towards higher rates, but we had expected this just from the learning curve of adding a new program and adding a new change into students' daily lives. But as you can see, there was a significant decrease, and we pretty much zeroed towards the end of our trial. And I think that's something that's very important to highlight, especially because towards the end of the project, actually our last week, we decided to remove our student volunteers to see how this program would sustain without them. I know it was a really big important part of the process in actually adapting the program to Oshkosh West. We wanted to make sure that it would be a smooth transition, but past that, we wanted to see if the program would truly be sustainable on its own. And as you can see by the data, I think it's clear to say that once we got past the first initial trial rates and accustomed to it, it became pretty much a norm. And then this is just a little bit of some human health damages, reductions, and greenhouse gas emissions, similar to the data I showed you before, but this is specifically for the pilot test. So greenhouse gas emissions were reduced by 1,030%, and within the 19 days, 196 kilowatt hours were produced. So in terms of expansion opportunities, the reason I'm here today, I think that this project was something that was initially an idea for me, a proposal, and then now testing it out at Oshkosh West High School, I think we've seen very favorable results. And then moving forward, I think this is something that we can definitely take into consideration in continuing forward. I just have 3 options here, just Oshkosh West High School continuation, Oshkosh West and Oshkosh North High School, and then OASD implementation. And the reason the high schools are sort of focused a little bit more is because the production food waste that comes from these schools are usually transferred to the high schools. And in this pilot test, it is important to note that we only collected student-produced waste. So a lot of the times, I know I talked with the janitorial staff, and they mentioned that a large portion of the landfill waste comes from food waste, and specifically production food waste. We only collected student-produced waste. So that didn't include the lunches that didn't get eaten, some numbers that weren't accounted for. So there is definitely a lot more food waste there. So in terms of transportation of waste and tipping fees, so currently I've talked to the UWO biodigester head, and he gave me a rough estimate of if it was just at Oshkosh West High School with the continued number from the trials, it would be $175 per month just to transfer the food waste. And as you can see in the image, that is a picture of the trucks that they currently use. They have an attachment that sort of grabs onto the trash bins, and they are compatible with the current trash bins that we use at Oshkosh West. We tested that out. But as I mentioned before, there is still a surplus of waste that is from production that we did not acknowledge with this trial. And in terms of capital funding, I think that if we were to do a project similar to this and continue this on, having that less landfill waste would reduce the amount of times that we would have to have landfill pickups, and in turn reduce landfill pickup fees, which could be used for biodigester fees instead. It would still be the same amount of waste, it would just be allocated differently, and towards an environmentally friendly cause as well. So this is an optimized trip that I created for pickup services. So there are 22 schools in the Oshkosh Area School District and 17 locations. So I created an optimized route. It would take about 88 minutes to complete this route. And that's including also the pickup times as well, some minutes accounted for there. And then all in all, this is an environmental reduction and sustainable education project. At its core, I really do believe that when I was creating this project, as much as it is the transfer of food waste and really getting rid of those carbon emissions and utilizing this great resource that we have here in Oshkosh, but I think it's truly something for education. Just seeing the students from the beginning of the trial towards the end of the trial, you could really tell that there was a difference, and it had become sort of a norm. Like, of course we can separate our food waste. This is something that we just do. It's something we can do. It's simple 5-minute fixes. This is something that the Green Alarm focuses a lot on. It's just 5-minute fixes that we can make in our day. Something that makes a daunting task like climate change seem a little bit more manageable. And I think that having this program moving forward and involving more students, it's really building those habits at a young age. In my research in environmental education, definitely it is a factor that, and it's scientifically proven that having these habits at a young age really do carry on to adulthood and creating sustainable citizens. So at its core, it really does focus on the environmental education as much as it is focused on the environmental impacts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So, as you can see, so Hannah has a lot of knowledge and a lot of passion, so thank you, Hannah. So one of the reasons why I thought it was important tonight to have Hannah present is because it also coincided with Tessa and Owen's presentation on environmental sustainability, so I thought it made sense to be able to group these two together. We certainly can have questions if there's questions for Hannah. One of my recommendations is then for us to move, so any proposals or anything moving forward to Facilities and Finance Committee, where we would work out a lot of the details. Certainly there's a lot of people involved, and Hannah being a senior, moving on next year, we'd want to make sure that, the leadership continues to be there and we can work through some sustainability plans. So, so certainly a lot more work to do, but just wanted an opportunity for Hannah to present, and great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from, I think we have several here. Let's start with Mrs. Carlin and then move to Mrs. Szilagyi.
Thank you for your presentation. It was amazing, and you did a fantastic job. And you can actually help me solve a mystery. Sophie, my daughter, brought home 2 bags of plastic material. I believe she's a member of Green Alarm.
Yes.
And I asked her what they were for, and the answer I got was, it's only for Green Alarm, and then I forgot to ask her again. So what was that about? You can't recycle that plastic material in the school? She had to take it somewhere else?
Yes, so that's actually, I think Tessa mentioned it earlier in this meeting, but it's part of like the Next Treks competition. So that's something the Green Alarm wanted to be a part of. It's basically taking like plastic film. So I know at like festival and Targets, you see those bins and it's like recycle plastic bags here. It's something like that, but it's a competition for our school. So basically, if we can accumulate like a certain number of pounds of trash, we can get some extra funding, also some recognition there, and it also just builds some classroom sustainability there. We actually incentivized it as the winning homeroom, so that's the students that bring the most pounds of trash per student. They will win a vegan cookout at the end of the month. Yes.
Exciting. Thank you very much. Yeah. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Mrs. Szilagyi.
I did not actually have a question. I may have moved my hand, but no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. It was a wonderful presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Very impressive, and another example of student-led initiatives in our district to make our district better. Very impressive.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to applaud you. That was an amazing presentation, and clearly you're very knowledgeable on this, and I just love how you engage the students and your vision for making this broader into all of our district. Yeah. Great job.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for all of your work.
Thank you, Hannah.
It had been proposed by Mr. Peschel when he was board president that we wanted to, as a board, hear more from our students, our student representatives from each high school. And so it ended up that Dr. Davis and I visited both high schools and their student council meetings and found out that through a survey of the membership of the student council in each school, found that there were certain topics that the students were especially interested in. And so we've already had a couple of topics brought forward by Owen and Tessa, and tonight is no exception. So we're going to be learning more tonight about the environmental sustainability issues in both high schools. So we'll turn it over to Owen and Tessa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this is not nearly as incredible as Hannah's presentation just was, but it definitely corresponds with it. So this month, Owen and I looked into environmental sustainability at both high schools and within the district. So we'll start with Oshkosh West and some of the efforts they have made. So there are different energy efficiency building upgrades that they've had, and that includes some triple paneled and tinted windows that keep the air in and reduce heat during spring and summer. We have automatic lights that are motion censored or timed that turn off when there's nobody in the room. We've switched mostly to LED rather than fluorescent lights, which are more energy efficient. Our boiler system and ventilation have been improved, and that reads the temperature within classrooms and automatically controls the heat. Over the past few years, we've been increasing technology use, which has helped to reduce paper consumption, and we've done that through online assignments as well as email send-outs and registration rather than everything on paper. We've also had various garbage cleanups which have been sponsored by different clubs. And then a big part of our environmental footprint at Oshkosh West is the Green Alarm Club, which I am a part of and Hannah is a part of. So that is our environmental advocacy club as well as a social media account where we share various environmental tips. So our current projects that we are doing is the project Hannah proposed, composting food waste with the UWO biodigester. We've also been collecting plastic film for the Trex competition, as well as working to educate some elementary school students by visiting classrooms with environmental lessons. In some of our various past projects, we collected and recycled candy wrappers during Halloween time through TerraCycle. We have helped sponsor various school garbage pickups. We recycled old broken Christmas lights. We sold reusable straws with our Wildcat Cafe at Oshkosh West, and we had a recycle program for disposable face masks.
Yeah, so Oshkosh North's efforts aren't as significant, but just as Oshkosh West, we've also been reducing paper consumption quite a bit with obviously Chromebooks and Canvas, and then teachers are also minimizing paper assignments. We have experimented with milk carton recycling programs, but that did not last very long. Throughout our school, we have a lot of water bottle friendly drinking fountains, so this really encourages reusable water bottle usage and has reduced the use of plastic water bottles significantly in our school. With single-use plastics and especially film plastics, our communities program is actually looking to tackle that next year with a recycling initiative aimed towards single-stream recyclables.
So next we wanted to look at some of the environmental education opportunities within the district. So we worked with Ms. Conrad and looked at where environmental education fits into school curriculums. So at the elementary school level, kindergartners learn about weather and plant and animal needs. First graders are learning about animal and plant traits as well as survival. In second grade, students learn about the Earth's surface, biodiversity, and adaptation. Third graders learn about life cycles, weather, and climate. Fourth graders learn about wind and the Earth's processes. And in fifth grade, they learn about ecosystems and Earth systems.
For middle school, seventh graders are focused on ecosystems and eighth graders with climate and the changing Earth. And then in high school, there are classes aimed towards environmental science, exploring conservation and natural resources, and exploring agriculture, food, and the environment. So one thing on this topic that was really important was seeing what other districts are doing around the country. So there are a lot of zero waste initiatives. Hannah mentioned a lot, increasing recycling and composting specifically. A lot of high schools around the country are incorporating on-site composting. What I've gotten as a rough estimate for cheapest systems, and this definitely varies around the country, would be between $600 to $1,000 with bins and supplies. There are definitely a lot more expensive systems that are included at like universities. This also kind of involves increasing local food production sources. So would that be getting our lunch and breakfast food sourced from locally grown areas? And then away from food, encouraging alternative transportation to school. So in the warmer months, obviously not in the winter, encouraging walking. And I know Oshkosh has added a lot of bike lanes. How can we make those more safer and more accessible in connecting neighborhoods to schools? Looking ahead to obviously newer schools incorporating skylights, this can definitely reduce energy usage from lighting. And then this probably in warmer regions of the country, solar and green roofs. So a lot of schools are incorporating green areas on top of their roofs, which also retain rainwater that can be used throughout schools.
Super cool. So what can the school board do? We definitely propose all the ideas that Owen shared, but we came up with a few other ones. So when looking at upgrading facilities, we'd encourage considering energy efficiencies and eco-friendly options, and these often cost less over time. We do plan to look into the monetary benefits of the school district becoming more sustainable. We were unable to get that information for this presentation, but hopefully we'll have it in May when we do wrap up on all of our presentations. We'd also encourage increasing environmental and conservation education in schools, and with that, awareness of climate change and the environmental issues going on today. And we'd like to encourage similar efforts to Oshkosh West at Oshkosh North High School. And just to add, after hearing Hannah's presentation, the school board could definitely make an effort to implement her project, and that would be an excellent eco-friendly option. Do we have any questions or comments?
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Carnes.
So I heard something in there. I guess I'm just asking, haven't been in the high schools in a while, but I've been in elementary schools with my kids and having lunch over the years, and there's no recycling program there. It just all goes in the trash. And obviously that's a younger age group and harder to differentiate where things go. Does the high school have just a recycling option? I saw something with single stream in there, like at lunchtime, do you guys have the ability to have a recycle?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe we have both trash and recycle bins in the lunchrooms as well as in all the classrooms.
Okay.
It could definitely be more successful with more awareness on what can be recycled.
So I think the presentation before talked about just awareness, and I know, you're talking about elementary school kids going that, but do we go the other way, take it from high school down to middle school, see how that goes? But I think the education piece can help and open an opportunity there to even just start with more recycling, I think would be.
So each school should have a recycling receptacle in their cafeteria. That was something that I think was put into place by Sue Schnorr, who was the previous business director. So if there isn't one, there definitely should be one in every school.
Interesting.
Wasn't there a committee on
there was
environmental?
A committee, yes, there was a committee.
I can't remember what it was called.
I can't remember what it was called either, but a parent-led committee to get recycling in all our schools so that we at least had recycling and for all the water bottles.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
That's information we can bring back.
Yeah.
We can do an assessment and bring that back to the Facilities and Finance Committee, I think, along with
For
Hannah's
sure, let's do that.
presentation, and bring all that back at once.
I did have one question. Are you still collecting Christmas lights, or is that?
I wrote the same thing down.
I have some.
I think we've finished that for the season, but we do usually do it every single year.
Awesome, thank you. I'll save them for you.
I appreciate with this presentation, as with your one on mental health, that you define some activities for the school board to do. In relationship to environmental sustainability, what role do you see the student councils playing in this effort?
Definitely helping, like if there is new programs like composting, the student councils could help educate the student body and be involved in like volunteering, helping that implement that in our lunchroom environments, for sure.
I know at Oshkosh West, our environmental club, the Green Alarm, sort of plays that role, and I know Student Council also helps promote a lot of the efforts that we're making, but the Green Alarm has been very successful at creating new projects and promoting sustainability.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No. Great job.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, it sounds like, again, this will be a topic on an upcoming facilities and finance meeting, and we'll look forward to their reporting back, as well as the two of you and possibly Hannah in May to see where we go next. Obviously, a very important area as we move forward as a district in terms of the environment. Thank you so much, all three of you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Okay, with that, we will move on to the non-agenda related public forum. No one has signed up for the non-agenda related public forum, but we do have 4 individuals who have signed up for the agenda related public forum. And we always take them in the order in which they've signed up. So I just want to review the ground rules, as it were, for addressing the board. We ask that you please clearly state your name and full address and the topic that you wish to address. If you are acting as a spokesperson for a particular group of individuals, we ask that you identify the group that you represent. We ask that you state clearly and concisely the matters of concern and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please remember that the use of specific names of district personnel, titles, or identifiable descriptions may lead to legal liability. In such instances, we ask that you pursue the district's formal complaint process by contacting the superintendent's office at 920-424-0160 to direct you to the appropriate administrator. And I would also point out that we do follow the Civility Project as board members. It's something that we've adopted many years ago, and we ask that our presenters adhere to those 9 tenets as well. So with that, we'll start with Aaron Shear.
Good evening. My name is Aaron Shear, and I live at 1720 Cliffview Drive. I am here to speak in support of the reorganization plan that includes a new Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. While I have a lot that I would like to say about this topic, I'm going to jump right to my main reason for supporting this position. If we are truly committed to raising the literacy scores in our district, then we need the new DEI position that the superintendent has proposed. Year after year, there is an extreme disparity in the literacy scores of students of color compared to white students in our schools. In particular, black students are testing especially poorly, as a group as much as 5 times less proficient as white students. Yes, the enhanced literacy curriculum and instruction should improve test scores overall. However, if we don't focus on the known groups of students who are farthest behind, we are not likely to make much headway in average scores. And even if overall literacy scores do incrementally improve, they won't improve nearly as much as they could without addressing and reducing the racial gap. I understand that the new approach to literacy focuses on the individual student and offers books that reflect their identity. These are good strategies. However, the reasons black and brown students are testing poorly go far beyond just addressing each student's specific literacy abilities and what book they're reading. For instance, we know from data that black and brown students are being removed from their classrooms at rates exponentially beyond white students through in-school and out-of-school suspensions. We also know from parents of black and brown students that their kids routinely face unkind and unfair treatment from school peers and from school staff that often goes unaddressed or is poorly addressed. We also know that there are no teachers of color in most schools and very few black and brown teachers in classrooms. And this lack of representation and advocacy for students of color is a major deficit. Not surprisingly, as black and brown students get older, they are much less likely to participate in extracurricular activities, advanced coursework, and leadership and career opportunities. This lack of greater engagement is a culmination of many years of discouragement. The experiences of our black and brown students that they are having in our schools is as much a part of their literacy scores as their actual literacy classwork.
About 20 seconds.
If we want literacy scores to improve, we need to address the many issues that are holding black and brown students back. This is what a director of DEI would do for the district. they would address all the barriers for marginalized students and lead the district in comprehensive strategies to reduce and eliminate these inequalities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Scheer. Excellent. Next, we have Krista Lee Brynwood.
Hello, my name is Krista Lee Brentwood, and I live at 1821 Iowa. I actually have the opposite opinion as the person that just spoke before me. I have here a copy of your DPI results for this school district, and they are dismal. Even though DPI tends to believe you meet expectations, that is a fail. Passing grade is not 34% for English language. A passing grade is not 36% for math. That is where this district lies. 36% of the students are at grade level for math. 34 are at grade level for English language. You don't need a DPI or a DEI person. What you need is tutors and actually teachers who can teach these subjects. Our students here at this district were separated from their peers for practically 2 years and forced to wear a face diaper, where they could not see each other, they couldn't communicate correctly. Younger students could not see and learn how to pronounce words. The problem was this generation coming up is muted because of the pandemic. And as the policies of this district masked our students and kept them separated from each other so long, it is your responsibility and your primary duty to educate our students in English and math. And I recommend that you hire some teachers who can actually teach this, focus directly on this, bring those students up from remediation, whatever color they are. It does not matter what color they are. They are students of this district, and they deserve an education that the taxpayers are paying for. Additionally, the teachers in this district are one of the highest paid in the state of Wisconsin, along with our administrator. Are they worth it? What is a passing grade in a classroom? Is it 33%, 34%? No, that's not even a passing grade. The results are shameful. The ACT scores went down. Nationwide, they went down, record low. Our district is at 19, and I can't read, 19.17, I believe here. I need some little reader glasses. But this is dismal, and this is unacceptable, and this has to change. And it's not going to change by hiring somebody to give hugs and make you feel like you're doing the right thing for whatever skin color is a big deal.
Seconds.
So, in our founding documents, it said all men are created equal. They should all have the equal opportunity. It does not say equitable. Teach our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Molly Smeltnick.
I'm Molly Smeltnick at 1855 Hickory, also to the reorg. Equity, working to meet the individual needs of each student, no matter the color of their skin, their background, their gender, if they are read to at home, their religion, their social emotional needs, their learning differences, what city or country they were born in, their sexual orientation, the language spoken in their home, the traumas they have faced. All these things that make each and every one of our students the amazing people that they are. It's their identity. Equity, moving beyond hate, beyond fear, beyond apathy, and beyond good intentions. Moving to recognizing, welcoming, understanding those unique characteristics that are so core to each of us, that individuality. Moving to belonging and thriving in a community, a school family that embraces you as the individual human you are. Equity is as key to the success of a school district as providing access to appropriate technology, or having and training great teachers, or compensating staff fairly, or implementing curriculum based on success and science. Investment in diversity, equity, and inclusivity isn't an add-on. It is something that is core to the success of a school district and its students. It must be ingrained in every job description, and every employee must be held accountable for it. And it must have a leader, a champion. Just like you have staff dedicated at the highest levels of, to overall strategy on technology, curriculum, and literacy. This is a both-and proposition, and much more. Even with this reorganization that includes a director of DEI, and with ingraining equity into all job descriptions, there's a lot of hard work ahead of us all. But working together and directly addressing the needs of our diverse student body is how we will all do it together. It's how we narrow opportunity gaps, equalize behavioral interventions, minimize suspensions and expulsions, and how we ensure all students are college, career, and community ready. Equity is worth the investment. Our students are worth the investment. At your community conversation, you said that it was the renaissance in the Oshkosh Area School District. For organizations that likewise feel that they are in this time of renaissance, leaders in business, industry, and education, DEI work is either a top priority or the top priority. They are addressing the root causes of inequity in their organizations and the services they provide. It is up to you to make Oshkosh the district you want it to be, to create that renaissance. I urge you to approve this reorganization as proposed by Dr. Davis and to invest in this priority.
Thank you, Mrs. Miltnick. Excuse me. Next is Paul Van Auken.
Hello, everybody. First, I want to say thank you to the board for listening to our comments from last week. Seems like it was eons ago.
Your address, please.
Oh, sorry. Paul Van Auken, 1125 Merritt Avenue. So again, thanks first of all for listening and taking, using humility to say maybe we need to rethink this, coming back with a proposal that's different in important ways. And it's been a good meeting to be at with all the students here to showcase what the fine work that the district is doing. To paraphrase from a couple of the student comments from earlier, I think the time is now. The issues with opportunity gaps and inequities in the school district are not new. They've been here long before the pandemic, unfortunately. And it's time for people to take bold action and not be bystanders. And as I said in my comments, when I realized afterwards I went over the 3 minutes, so I'm trying to go faster this time. Last time, this is not bold in the sense that other places don't have DEI directors or offices and such, but it'd be a bold move for Oshkosh now. Bold in that it's unprecedented, bold that it takes a new investment and prioritization that says this is important. I'm wearing a sticker that says invest in relationship-rich education because this is something that we just launched today, we being faculty and staff at UW Oshkosh. And I thought it was appropriate for this occasion because I think what gets lost sometimes is that inequities and opportunity gaps and such happen because of relationships that are not functioning like they should be. If we have a school youth population that's twice as diverse as the rest of the city, but people are unaware of that. If we have 25% or so of our students being students of color and 1% or so of staff being people of color, that's a lot of relationship work that needs to be done because those gaps are meaningful. So I see the DEI director position as doing a lot of things, but one of them will be building relationships amongst people that need to have tighter relationships in the name of success. If you think about what makes a good relationship, you respect each other, you listen to the other person, you care about their well-being, you make sure that they have what they need. You try to do your best to make sure that that's the case. Relationships are key. That's true at Oshkosh, where the main problem we're dealing with there is student retention. We have some of those issues in the school district too, but it's broader student success in all kinds of areas that people have been addressing prior to me. So I urge you to approve the proposal and invest in relationship-rich education for OASD too. I think it'll pay off and it's going to serve all students in the district, but particularly the ones that need the extra lift. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
That ends our public forum, agenda-related public forum for tonight. So moving on with the rest of the agenda, we have workshops. I think I'm on the wrong page here. Thank you. We have the career and technical education update with Mrs. Poyer and Ms. Conrad. Thank you.
Great. Good evening. I'm Julie Conrad, the Director of Curriculum and Assessment for the Oshkosh Area School District, and with me today I have Vicki Poyer, who is our Career and Technical Education Curriculum Coordinator for the school district. And I'm going to let Vicki kick us off with a few acronyms and definitions to ground us in our presentation tonight.
Well, good evening. So, career and technical education is really the next iteration of vocational ed. And so, some of you may remember shop class or home economics back in the day. And those were really designed to provide skills for a specific job. And CTE, as we know it now in this iteration, is really about developing career identities for our students. We know that our students will have a wide variety of careers throughout their lives. And in our economy, really our fast-paced technical skills and employability skills. So, just to reground us, when we are using our terminology, our vernacular tonight, CCR is College and Career Community Ready. When we refer to CTE, we are looking at middle school family consumer science, technology and engineering, business and agriculture. Health science is housed within the science department, but it is often used in our CTE data. A CTE concentrator differs from enrollment. And so while many students take career and technical education classes as electives, CTE concentrator is really a federal term for students who successfully complete 2 or more courses in a designated career pathway. So for example, a student who takes accounting 1 and accounting 2 would be considered a concentrator in finance. We'll also be referring to the CLNA, and that is the Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment. That really drives our federal Carl Perkins funding, taking a look at data on student achievement, gaps, and needs in our pathways. And then finally, we will be using terms such as IRC, YA, WBL, and also dual credit. Really, and when we take a look at our key performance indicators, we'll see those terms as well. These are our capstone experiences for students in career and technical education. So an industry recognized credential you might think of as like our CNA, a certified nursing assistant. We'll talk about youth apprenticeships and work-based learning more broadly.
So the Oshkosh Area School District first started using the term College Career and Community Ready in 2016. It's been that long. And so when we talk about College Career and Community Ready, it's really describing life and career skills, or some people call them soft skills, career exploration, which we're going to focus on today, financial literacy, and all has an underpinning of a foundation of academics. So when we go into the second workshop talking about key progress indicators, one that's under the learning and academics pillar within the continuous improvement plan is the college credit or work experience. And so when we talk about why this matters, career and technical education pushes directly into that career performance indicator. It is linked and has been linked to our 2019 to 2024 Strategic Plan 3.0. And it's underneath Goal 1, and it's underneath Priority Area 1 under Narrow Opportunity Gap. So if you've had the opportunity to unpack our strategic plan or take a further look underneath Priority 1, all of the action steps and a lot of the work that you're going to hear about tonight are unpacked underneath there. And currently, we are rating, or a key progress indicator that you're going to be looking further at in the next workshop is graduating seniors engaging in advanced placement, dual credit, youth apprenticeship, work-based learning, or industry-recognized credential experiences. So once again, our career and technical education area is key to helping us push this key performance indicator.
So we're going to take kind of a broad look right now at who our CT concentrators are. And remember, a CT concentrator is somebody who has taken 2 or more courses in a particular pathway. As we take a look broadly, our student demographics mostly represent our student population taken as a whole.
And you can see the percent concentrators. That would be the number of students that did have those 2 or more courses compared to our high school populations. And this is for the 21-22 school year. As we go into the actual career pathways, our career pathways are courses that are clustered together into a particular area. And you can see the areas that are listed up there and how many CTE concentrators come in those different pathways. And you may be going, wow, there's a whole lot in business management and administration. Keep in mind that every single junior, or in order to graduate from the Oshkosh Area School District, you must take a personal finance course, which actually comes into and helps count towards becoming a concentrator. And then our agriculture, food, and natural resources area, agriculture is a department that houses some of our science equivalency courses. In other words, you can take veterinary science as an equivalent for a science credit. So you're going to see that represented in there. And then when we come over to the right here, just as Vicki said, enrollment and being a concentrator are 2 different things. So when we put all of these courses and career pathways together, last school year, 1,710 students were enrolled in a course that goes that's aligned with this. You're also going to wonder, why not previous data? Why just 21-22? Because as the state of Wisconsin is maturing in what they look at and what they record data in when it comes to career and technical education and being ready after graduation, they have shifted those requirements and they've shifted that data pieces. If you'll recall in our school report card presentations, just in the last 2 years, had they started to really push and collect data and tell us and say, this is how we are going to look at it comprehensively across the state of Wisconsin. So this is last year's school data, and going forward, we're going to be better able to report trends over time.
Okay, so dual credit courses. So I guess, as I had said earlier, dual credit course is really considered one of our capstone experiences for students in career and technical education. Redefining READY, really which models our school report card, looks at completion of a dual credit coursework as one indicator of college and career readiness. So currently 14 CTE courses offer dual credit with Fox Valley Technical College. We do have an education policy through UWO, as well as a UWO finance course through University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh. One thing to note, however, not all dual classes run every year due to low enrollment.
So when we take a look at dual credit courses, we define dual credit courses as either advanced placement, they could be dual enrollment with UW-Oshkosh or Fox Valley Technical College. And so up here you can see broken down by race the number of students that either took a CAP or a Fox Valley Tech dual enrollment course or an AP course in our total. So between North and West for the 21-22 school year, 750 students took one or more dual credit courses. And as you can see in here, we absolutely have work to do when it comes to accessing upper level and dual credit courses within our high schools, and that was pointed out in one of our opportunities for improvement within the key performance indicator of dual credit and work experience.
Can I ask a question?
Yep. Yes.
I'm lost.
Yes.
The CT pathways.
Yes.
It's like if you take accounting 1 and accounting 2. So they're two
Yes.
classes put together that are giving you an experience to move forward in a career. And there's 680 of those opportunities. This is, how do the dual credit courses fit into that, or they don't? It's something completely different.
So so a pathway is a cluster of courses. So it's saying in this area you can take a set of these courses. And so when you have concentrators, they have taken 2 or more courses in that particular pathway.
Got it.
Some of those courses could be dual credit, and some of them, the courses are not dual credit. One of our goals and what we want students to experience is having a dual credit course in junior or senior year that's aligned to a pathway that they've chosen that aligns with where they see themselves going after high school. Does that make sense?
It does. So the 680 is the number of classes or students that have taken accounting 1, accounting 2, for example?
Yes.
Got it.
Students named concentrators.
Correct.
Okay. Student named
And those are
concentrators.
those are individual, unique students.
Got it.
Correct. So these were the dual credit courses enrollment broken down. So 750 students total took a dual credit, and remember AP, Advanced Placement, is also a dual credit course. And you can notice that this looks different. This is pulled directly and lifted right out of our WISE data system. So if you're familiar with WISE- Public Portal, we have a WISE- for our school district. That's where these numbers are directly pulled from. Then with dual credit courses, this is our enrollment by economically disadvantaged and not economically disadvantaged. That would be students that qualify for free and reduced lunch, broken down. And as you can see, we absolutely have gaps in this area as well.
Yeah.
A lot.
Then when we get into this piece here, this is talking about students with disabilities, and you may be going, why the smiley face? So putting over the top of that, we have covered up, or we have, what we're showing here is when you disaggregate data or you pull this out this far, there may be student identifiable data, and so that's why those numbers are not reported. And so when you look at this, once again, there's 750 students total. SWOD stands with students without disabilities. So you can see where we have students enrolled in dual enrollment in AP courses. And yes, we have work to do as far as also students with disabilities accessing upper level courses. And so once again, that's where the statements and our opportunities for improvement come in about how are we pushing those foundational academics so students can access those opportunities.
So as Julie alluded to, we have opportunities for improvement in career and technical education. So our CTE teachers actually are in process right now of digging through our latest CLNA, and we are taking a look at student enrollment. We're taking a look at subgroup enrollment. And we are actually in the process of taking a hard look at our pathways and our courses that flow into our pathways. One thing to note that culinary, which represents, or excuse me, culinary, hospitality, and tourism taken together, really is the pathway that presents the best representation of our school district demographics. So we discussed work-based learning, or excuse me, we discussed dual credit, and now we're moving into work-based learning. So when I was in high school, we had co-op, right? And so work-based learning is, yes, indeed, we still have a supervised agriculture co-op, but really the newest iteration of that is youth apprenticeship. So our youth apprenticeship are actually regulated by the Department of Workforce Development. So the DWD identifies our high demand, high need, high pay careers and puts together a list of occupational competencies and employability competencies. So one example of a youth apprenticeship that we have in our school district is in manufacturing. We also have youth apprenticeships in healthcare, and a variety of others as well, but those are really our two strongest at this point in time. We also have credit recovery for students with credit deficiencies that falls under the guise of work-based learning, but they're not reportable because those experiences do not meet the quality and rigor requirements for our CLNA as defined by Perkins 5.
So when we look at our work experience opportunities, this is what our data looks like for 21-22. So this is broken down by race. A school-based enterprise would be like our Wildcat Cafe, our Spartan Cafe, our Brewing Futures mobile cafe. Those would be examples of school-based enterprises that students are engaging in. Youth apprenticeships, as we described, the supervised agriculture experience, and then internship or local co-ops. Some of those internships would be, for example, at Communities 2, students engage in internships in that second semester of their junior year, I believe it is, or is it senior year, either junior or senior year. And so there you can see our totals of reportable work-based learning experience by race. These are the work experience opportunities reported by disability area, and you can see in our school-based enterprise, we have a large number of our students with disabilities do work in our school-based enterprises.
Would these students be juniors and seniors, or what level would they be?
For a youth apprenticeship, juniors and seniors. And then our supervised ag experience, I believe most of those students are officers in FFA, so it would be at the junior and senior level as well.
Our school-based enterprise can go from grades 9 through 12.
For many, many years, this district concentrated on co-op. And I remember going to a number of co-op, I think they called them banquets, at one of our local restaurants, where they held them in May, and the lake flies would drop from the ceiling, sometimes into the food, unfortunately. But the big emphasis at that time was co-op. They would fill the ballroom of this particular establishment with not only co-op students, but their cooperating job placement individuals. So this is really down from that number, and there were virtually no youth apprenticeships at that time. So I'm glad to see that we're moving in that direction. I'm wondering do we do our own youth apprenticeship recruitment and preparation, or are we working through CESA 6? I know they're one of the big providers of youth opportunities through the apprenticeships in this part of the state.
So for the last 3 years, we've been part of the CESA 6 consortium, where we have been at a Tier 3 contract with them. In other words, they've been managing and working our youth apprenticeships, like through placing them. We have a few of them that we were placing in the Oshkosh Area School District, and we contracted that as a Tier 2. Going into next school year, we feel as the Oshkosh Area School District, we really want to be in control and do a direct partnership with businesses with the school district, and so we will be at a Tier 2 contract, which means we are managing and partnering directly with our businesses. And so we are very optimistic that that's going to yield additional enrollments in work experience or work-based learning.
Thank you. Other questions? Okay.
Nope.
In this next slide shows for 21-22, where we are with students that are economically disadvantaged or not economically disadvantaged. And so one other thing I want to point out on here is, remember that these are the numbers that that meet the data requirements and that we are reporting to the state. We have other experiences, like when Vicki was referring to supervised work experience, where students are going out and working. So we have anywhere from about 110 to 120 students currently in that situation, and that would model that older co-op version where students are being either released or not released from school, it depends, to go work in a job placement. And we're going to talk about, when we get to the end of the presentation, opportunities that we can use with those students that are already engaged or within that programming, and how we can convert that. And actually, I just said that.
So thanks for stealing my thunder.
Sure.
So our opportunities for improvement. Let me just back up to say that in the last 2 years, our career and technical ed teachers have, we meet together on a monthly basis and are working through, as I said, our CLNA, and working through our opportunities for improvement with apprenticeship and work-based learning. And so our goals as we move through next year are really to convert those work experiences into dedicated and supervised co-ops and youth apprenticeships, and really continue to take a look at our school-based enterprises. You know, like Brewing Futures is just a fantastic example of a school-based enterprise in which students are highly engaged and learning applicable occupational as well as employability skills. And so really looking to continue that trend with our school stores and other school-based enterprises. So we talked about dual credits. We talked about work-based learning. And industry-recognized credentials are really that third arm of a capstone experience for students. So in our changing economy, industry-recognized credentials can really fill that gap between a high school diploma and a 2 or a 4-year degree. As I said, the CNA is one example of an industry-recognized credential that our school district offers. So our students graduating with an industry-recognized credential really makes them more competitive in those industry-specific markets. Now, some colleges and universities will allow that the earning of that IRC as advanced standing in some of their programs. And again, industry-recognized credentials are another indicator of career readiness as defined by Redefining Ready. Oops, back up. Thanks. So we had 9 students last year earn industry-recognized credentials in certified nursing assistant as well as assistant child care teacher. We also offer industry-recognized credentials in finance as well as Microsoft Office. Those classes are not currently running due to low enrollment. So, opportunities for improvement. Another piece that we are working on as a CTE group as we are revising our pathways are looking for opportunities that are natural fits for industry-recognized credentials, youth apprenticeships, as well as dual credit opportunities. We know that we have barriers, and so those are pieces that we are working on when we're looking at our CLNA. And actually, May will be a formal protocol with our CTE teachers and our counselors as we work through this information.
So a big thing that one of our asks from the board and our community members right now is really redefining or expanding what we think of as success. Because as a community, we often think graduating from high school and going directly to a 4-year university is the only pathway, or it has to be the pathway for success. And just recently, there was a conversation with a parent who was actually apologizing that her child was, her high school student was in an automotive technician and automotive courses going through this. And I know he's just in these courses. I know that he's just in this pathway. And, the question was, why are you apologizing? That's awesome that he's in an area that is meeting his needs, that he's interested in, and that is going to lead to employment right after graduation. And so whether we want to say it or not, those things are out there right now as far as that four-year college track being what true success looks like for a school district. And I think there's many pathways for success. And so that would be just one reminder as we're thinking about building out our pathways and moving those points, those data for our students. And once again, keeping in mind that all of the data points and things that we're talking about here are data points. Keep in mind the wonderful things that our students are doing, the experiences they're having that may not be state reportable. And so speaking of that goes right into our CTE spotlights.
So I'm going to tell you, we have had so much fun with this year. This was an idea that was born out of our district collaborations last year, and so we have worked together as a group, and each CTE area at both schools have identified a senior who exemplifies career and technical education in that pathway. So we have had so much fun with this. Our students have enjoyed being interviewed. Their narratives of who they are and who they wish to become have been just so fun to explore. So more coming on those. We have another that is ready to be launched, and then two more that we'll see yet before the school district the school year is done.
So when it comes to celebrations, we actually have lots of things to celebrate, and a lot of our celebrations come with our community partners in re-engaging with our community, specifically after the pandemic, when not being face-to-face or having large gatherings was difficult at that time. So really coming back together and reigniting and re-engaging with our community and our community partnerships to build up those numbers within career and technical education.
Talk a little bit about the standard equipment list. One of the things that our teachers, our staff worked pretty diligently on throughout this school year is to audit our lab spaces throughout all of our middle schools and both high schools, and really develop a standard equipment list to ensure that students, regardless of which site they're at, have equitable access to culinary labs, automotive labs, business labs, etc. So we developed those first semester and really focused our efforts in February to get those ordered and up and going. And so as of last week, I think we have our last purchase that has gone through. So our staff is really excited about that opportunity to provide equitable experiences for our students.
Yep. And Mr. Nehans mentioned that in his budget variance report this evening. So next steps.
Next steps and beyond. And actually, if I can move back one, which leads into that, really the other priority for me this year was to really provide agency for our career and technical education teachers to really become change agents and advocate for the students that they serve. So as we move into next steps, we are going to continue to meet as a full group on a monthly basis. We are going to continue to dig in and understand our data and understand our CLNA and make intentional, purposeful decisions on the curriculum that we offer and our pathways. We are partnering with other professionals, including the counselors, in May to make sure that we can coordinate a work-based learning continuum and other career-connected opportunities. And then finally, we are really excited to personalize our student experience with our youth apprenticeships beginning next year. We really believe that these partnerships will work best when we have our local businesses and organizations working directly with our schools.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions or comments? Mrs. Carlin.
Does anybody else have one? I feel like Ted always says, if you think you're talking too much, you probably are. Does anybody else have? Okay. I'll just go for it. I couldn't help but notice in the presentation that when it comes to students of color, for example, we only had 3 black students that are engaging in work experience opportunities and only 9 students of color that are in the CTE pathways or something. So my question to you is, how are we making sure that we involve not just our students of color, but make this program more equitable as a whole? And in your opinion, do you think that having a director of education or of diversity, inclusion, and equity would have an impact on getting more students involved in this program?
So first, to answer your first question, right, the second to the last bullet point is that's one of the things that we're going to be engaging in this May, is to understand decreasing enrollment and specifically the disproportionality in enrollment in CTE courses, work-based learning, those types of things. Because right now, we do not have students of color. We also have disproportionality in students with disabilities reaching those upper level courses and the access to that. So we have to identify those pieces. As far as a director goes, no matter what the board chooses to do with positions tonight, we know that we have to do this work no matter what, because it's the right work to do. The other piece is really understand our reporting and capturing what are truly the experiences our students are engaging in. And are they equitable experiences? In other words, are they high quality? And are the students having the prerequisites, or they're getting the foundation so that they're able to access those pieces? So no matter what the decision of the board is, we have to do this work.
Thank you.
Mr. Wright?
We may have went through this at some point, but how are we informing students of these options? Because I think, like, when I was a high school student, and that was a while ago, I guess now, I didn't really understand, that an electrician could make, a really, really good living, or a plumber could make a really, really good living. So, and I don't think a lot of my, people that I was friends with did either. So, like, how do we inform students of these different options? Because I think information is powerful, and, you can make a really good career, with a lot of these options.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about windows and mirrors with students. So providing students opportunities to really get out in the community and engage with our community partners to really come to an understanding of the wide variety of careers that exist. And these are careers that are highly skilled, opportunities for high level of creativity. And so to speak to your point, really starting in middle school, we are working with our community partners to get our kiddos out into our organizations and with our employers, so that they can see what possibilities actually exist.
Do they need to have a desired interest in that, before they'd be able to go out into the field, or or is there some initial information, beforehand so that they can?
So universally, we have been offering experiences to our middle school students. I will say an opportunity for improvement is to increase our targeted experiences, targeted with subgroups as well. So for example, when we take a look at the students in our STEM pathway, we have very few females who are engaged in those courses. And so there are absolutely opportunities to provide targeted field trips. We have been focusing on universal.
Okay.
Mrs. Wyman.
Have businesses been receptive to the partnerships that you're developing?
Well, I think we've turned a corner. For the last few years, we've had COVID restrictions. And so even into last spring, it was very difficult to get our kiddos out into the community. This year, we have actually received enormous support from our business partners. I'm thrilled. We were hoping to show you pictures of our Career Expo, and actually Julie Davids is here with us tonight too from the Chamber of Commerce. Julie and I collaborated on Career Expo, which was to be held
February 23rd.
And it was canceled due to weather. And so we're in the process of rescheduling those opportunities for our students.
And that's an example of a universal opportunity for students to explore those career clusters or those different pathways in 8th grade before they register and before they select courses going into high school.
Tessa.
So last month, Owen and I looked at future preparations for our presentation.
Yes,
so
you
a lot
did.
of this is corresponding with what we did. And I just pulled up some of the data. So we asked juniors and seniors at Oshkosh West and Oshkosh North to rank themselves 1 to 5, how prepared they feel to go into the workplace, 5 being the most. And we had 70% of students say they were either at a 4 or a 5 level.
Cool.
So it's obvious that these efforts are working, and while we maybe have a little bit of improvement that can be made on awareness and making sure all of our students are getting these opportunities, we can tell that they really are working for a lot of kids.
Anyone else? I have several points I'd like to go over. And Mrs. Wyman has taken us down that path already with engagement of the Oshkosh business community. I've had some work done on my house over the last year or two and have been amazed at the 20-somethings who come in to do the plumbing work or the electrical work. And I usually ask them why they've chosen that career path, and the answer typically is because I want to do something hands-on, I want to do something that's different every day, and I can be earning a 6-figure income before I'm age 30, and I plan to buy a house and do this and this and this. So I'm just wondering, how are we engaging the business community to educate our students in terms of opportunities here in Oshkosh? We have a lot of manufacturing in this community. There's a plant located not far from my house, and they're always looking for about 6 different job categories. So how do we educate students and their families to understand that there are good careers out there that don't necessarily require a 4-year college degree? I'm not putting down college degrees. I'm just saying there are various pathways that people can pursue to be contributing citizens.
So our number one pathway that we are strengthening right now, and it was launched with School to Work, is our manufacturing pathway. And so currently right now our School to Work pathway is exclusively, our School to Work program is exclusively with Oshkosh Defense. That's expanded for next year to multiple, we're not ready to reveal all of them yet, but with multiple manufacturing placements, because we know it's manufacturing, IT, and healthcare are indicated business areas that really have targeted need when it comes to career pieces. And so we are taking into account what do our Oshkosh area businesses and community need when it comes to education, because we know that strong schools fuel a strong economic development and a strong economy.
And so to that point, this year I have been working with our School to Work lead, Alex Torres, and we have been touring area manufacturing companies and working to place students for next year. And I will say, again, we have had overwhelming support for this partnership. And there are businesses that then we have found that want to be all in and take students for next year, but there's also a continuum, right, where there are businesses that love the concept, want to help, want to assist, have offered to provide tours for students, not just with their school to work, but more broadly, come in as guest speakers, provide mentor opportunities and job shadows. And so when I had said that our response in the community has been overwhelming, nowhere has it been more overwhelming than with manufacturing.
That's good to hear. I know that there's a school district within probably 25 miles of here that has what sounds like a pretty robust CTE program where they bring in a lot of guest speakers, not only from that community, but also from the Oshkosh community, to interact with the students and promote these kinds of careers. There's another school district to the north that has partnered with one of the technical colleges, and they have brought in a diesel mechanics program because that particular community has a lot of or at least one significant business that requires that kind of workers. So they see the connection between the needs of the business community and high schoolers who need to get onto a career path. So there's some, I think, good examples within our region of very successful programs that can promote this. I do have two other comments or questions. One deals with student enrollment. I'm curious as to what's happened to student enrollment in our CT classes over, say, the last 5 to 10 years. I also recognize that there's a statewide issue relative to certified teachers. One of the state universities used to be well known for pumping out vocational ed teachers, family and consumer ed, and even 10 years ago they weren't producing enough replacements in those areas. UW has offered an alternative licensure program to bring in individuals to earn their certifications in those areas. What is our, I'm not sure what my question is, what difficulty do we have in finding licensed teachers to teach these classes?
Enormous difficulty.
Enormous difficulty, correct. So right now, if anybody knows of a certified technology and engineering teacher, we need 2 for Vel Phillips coming up. Currently, we're staffed with retired individuals that have graciously come back and worked with us. But technology and engineering is a key field. So getting one of our strategies has been getting student teachers into our school district underneath the CTE umbrella to then be able to recruit them from there. But we are actively looking and recruiting for career and technical education teachers.
Family consumer science are other hiccup
Okay.
as well.
Are we looking 612 at CTE, so that we're looking at what are the experiences in the middle school that might attract kids at the high school level to pursue one of these pathways?
That's part of the reason that for the last year and a half, we have been working as a full 612 CTE group on a monthly basis.
Thank you. I didn't mean to drill you. I'm just very interested in this topic. I have a lot of wonderings.
Well, I understand this is an area I'm pretty passionate about. I want all of our graduates to have the opportunity to pursue their passions, their dreams. Absolutely.
Mrs. Carlin.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like before the pandemic, our trajectory in this area was just taking off sky high, and then the pandemic kind of put us back down to the beginning. So I feel like you guys have done a great job rebuilding some of those relationships that were maybe paused during the pandemic.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We've worked really hard.
You have worked really hard, and
Thank you.
it's heartbreaking to see that some of it had to go away for a little bit, and then you had to build it back up. But
And keep in mind, we're facing lower enrollment throughout all of CTE right now.
Yep. And I'm happy that you continue to advocate that college is not for everyone. And it's not just because of the expense, but there are some people that college is not for them. And my brother was one of those people who I often think about how different his life would have been if he would have pursued his passion in the culinary arts or a trade or something. And, you know, I'm glad that we communicate that.
Well, I would challenge us to even think about it more broadly. So as we're touring facilities, we will often meet with a plant manager who started with a co-op or work experience as a senior in high school and then landed a position right after high school. Worked for a few years and then his or her employer
Paid for college.
for a 2-year degree. Worked for a number of more years and then the employer converted that to a 4-year degree. So I'd really like to challenge that. It's either go to a 4-year, go to a 2-year, or go right into the world of work. It really it's a winding road, and you can do all of those things within the course of your career.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Nope.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation and all your hard work in this area.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? So we're at 8:30, and many people here have been here because the next item we're going to get to talk about the individually considered resolutions. I'm just wondering, is it possible for the continuous improvement plan to be delayed to a future meeting? Or what's the timeline, like how long is that one? I just want to try to maybe give feedback for the people who've been waiting for that conversation, and I know that's going to take some time as well, that we move to that.
Could we make a motion to
Can I ask Dr. Dick, how long is that presentation do you think it would be?
My part of the presentation is about 5 to 10 minutes, and then just a matter of dialogue, you know, with the board. Certainly want to provide enough time. If we were to table that, you know, that would just be something we would take up on March 29th or 28th, whatever the next meeting is.
I move we table it until March 29th.
I second.
Second?
Third.
Fifth.
All right. I don't believe that's open for debate, so please call the roll.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Stearns.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Solaji.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. I would request a 5-minute recess. Some of us have been
Second.
here for a long time, and that would give us a time to embark on the second part of this meeting, which is probably going to generate more conversation. Please call the roll on the recess.
See where we're at.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Solaji.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. 5-minute recess.
For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Board of Education is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Board of Education is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Board of Education is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Board of Education is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Board of Education is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly. The Oshkosh Board of Education is currently in a break. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. This is GovTV, opening accessibility and understanding of local government, helping you to be informed and involved. Also streaming live and on demand at oshkoshmedia.org and radio simulcast on Oshkosh FM 101.9. Like us on Facebook at our Oshkosh Media page. For a schedule of all GovTV programming, visit our website at oshkoshmedia.org. Please stay with us. Coverage will resume shortly.
Thank you. So moving on, we have tabled the continuous improvement plan to the March 29th meeting, and then we'll move on to the consent resolution agenda. For the consent agenda, The board has been furnished with background material on each item or as discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled out of the consent agenda and will be voted on separately.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Was that Wyman that moved it? And
Yes.
Carnes
Yeah.
that
Yes.
seconded it?
Oh. I didn't say
It was,
Right.
It was a tie between us three.
Right.
I'll take it.
Okay, I think I won. Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Saletti.
aye.
Knight.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you very much. Moving on then to individually considered resolutions. Resolution number 2. Be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District approve the new position of Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Carlin and Wyman. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Who's going first?
I'm not going first.
Well, I'll go first because
Okay,
I have
Mrs. Wyman.
some nuts and bolts questions.
Sure.
When I put my budget hat on and think about the budget, where are we taking from to be able to pay for this position?
Yeah, so at this point, we wouldn't have a definitive, location for that. We're currently going through our staffing process, both right now at the secondary level, and we'll be working through that at the elementary level also. And then, again, just looking at where our revenues are and what our forecasting is. So I can't name a specific place that it'll be, but certainly it'll need to be part of our overall staffing plan as we would move it forward. One of the things we're also conscious of is this position would be something that would be a reoccurring expense, so it wouldn't be a one-time type of thing. So we also have positions like at the Dean of Students positions that were brought forward as part of the COVID relief money that we'll need to add in to the budget also. So as we look at that, that'll be part of our process in prioritizing as we would move forward.
Mrs. Carlin, I'm sorry, I didn't know if Mrs. Wyman
Yeah.
was finished. Mrs. Carlin.
Are you finished?
I think so.
You can come back.
We can always come back, yeah.
Okay. So I regrettably missed the last meeting, and it turns out I missed a meeting. And I watched it online, and I had several observations. The first observation I had is that I was so grateful for the community members that brought forward this position and this concept. I think everything that the community members said during that board meeting was very impactful for someone who was watching it at home. Secondly, I wanted to commend this board for the discussion that ensued on this topic. I thought it was handled very well, and I was proud that everyone adhered to the rules of civility. I thought it was a difficult conversation, but I thought that the board handled it extremely well. I would also like to thank Dr. Davis for pivoting and bringing forward this position to the board this evening. My feelings are that equity work cannot simply be a bullet point in every job description. I feel like if we really want to make a significant change, we need a strategy. And this position echoes our commitment to making real change in our schools, and I think that this is an amazing opportunity. I keep thinking of the WASB speaker, I don't know who was on the board during this time, who said, you cannot be what you do not see. And for too long, our students have not seen people that they want to be in our schools. And we have embedded equity into HR positions to attract more diverse talent pools. A position like this would actually enable us to make some movement in this area, in my opinion. I also wanted to just point out, it's not well advertised, but 100 years ago, Oshkosh was actually a meeting place for the KKK. And in 1920, 5,000 KKK members met in Oshkosh for a rally. And I share this not because I am proud of it, I obviously am not, but to show that there is a history in this community, and some would call that systemic racism. And the only way that you make a serious change into systemic racism is by making bold moves and a radical change. And that is why I am hoping that the board approves this position this evening. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll talk.
Mr. Kent?
This might be a bit, so let me just talk through this. I put something together that I was going to read. I'm still deciding if I want to do that. I've taken my time with this one over the last week. I've talked to a lot of different people with different places within this concept that could share some ideas with me. I know that I've talked to Dr. Davis about this, and it's not like when the question about the budget, where the money comes. It's got to come from somewhere. And so I start with, we hired Dr. Davis because, as one person told me who has a very intimate knowledge of your work, you are an expert in this area and recognized as such by your peers. And so part of our conversation when hiring him was that. So we also made a commitment to our literacy and math scores. And we have not yet given a financial we've been asking for some time to have, what that's going to look like on the next budget, because obviously that's going to involve positions, multiple positions, if we are serious about putting that in policy and achieving it. Doesn't mean that if we fund one position, it comes out of the other positions. I get that idea, but it does come from somewhere. For many people in the audience who are here, I've talked to them many times, and my commitment to equity should be very clear. I struggle with if this is the right move, and with the other things I've mentioned is also because I'm afraid of putting it on one person. It can't be on one person. It has to be on everybody. It has to be on the teachers, the custodians, the food service workers, the principals. It has to be everywhere. And part of the conversations that we have at I guess for myself, since we had the equity workshop, which is funny that tonight's meeting mirrors that meeting from May 11th, where it was long, and many of the same people here waited for that equity workshop, and it took 3.5 hours to get to it. So tonight I was hoping let's get there faster. But it's in everything. Every committee meeting that we've had since that workshop, when we said that can't happen, we don't do workshops on equity. We put it into everything. Every committee meeting we've had since then that has anything remotely close to anything to do with equity has been, or anything that could be, there's an equity piece to that. Every conversation we have, every question that comes up, and thank you to some of you who brought it up earlier, but no black students took AP courses in 21-22 school year.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that I can't agree that there's significant issues. It's also that I know we've made changes in the last 18 months with Dr. Davis on board. Maybe it's not 18 months, but 20 months. That we will see the fruits of that labor soon. I'm confident of that. And I think I've talked to you that this position can also make us stronger. And that's when I struggle, because if you show in this world that we live in, money's the only thing that makes a difference. When people with money can show there's a problem and put their money towards it, that's how things change. I listened to the presentation tonight about the biodigester and all of that, but only when people with money will put their resources behind tackling climate change does anything get better. And so I feel like if we also don't put our money where our mouth is and invest in this position, what does that show as well? So, but we did invest in Dr. Davis, so it's like I'm bouncing all over the place, and I'm struggling, and I'm willing to have this conversation tonight to hear, because my brain is going between, we need equity work, but is that the right answer? And I know some in the audience will say, yes, that's the right answer, but ultimately, we won't know if it's the right answer for years down the road. And so, is the work we're doing right now, having the right principals in place, having the right administration in place, you being able to hire 2 new staff members or 3 new staff members, is that the opportunity that you need to make changes? I don't know. And I guess that's where I'm sitting right now, so everybody knows that's a lot of words I just threw out there. But my brain has bounced all over the place. And we also talk about the literacy in math, and we put that in policy. And is there a way to put equity work in policy? Is there a way to put on all staff members evaluations every year? What have you done to make the learning environment better, more equitable, more opportunities? Like, I'm curious with that, but I also think we haven't finished the first part, which was putting literacy in math in policy. And that is equity work. Every part about that, because that's the end goal, is that every student has the ability to read. Every student can take AP courses. 0 black students taking AP courses in a school year, we can all sit here and agree that that's terrible. So, but that's the end goal, is the literacy. And so, like, we are making an effort to go there. I want to put every single resource we can find. I hear, it's not what we're doing with it, but like, I hear surpluses and I immediately think that can go back in the classroom. You know, and that's not always the case, because it's a one-time thing and not recurring. But that's where I'm struggling, is that I want all of that emphasis into that literacy and math. And maybe this helps that, maybe it doesn't, but I feel like that's the end goal of all of this, is to make sure every student has the opportunity to achieve. And that's right in front of us. And I guess I kind of leaning towards every available resource goes there, because that is equity work, but I could have my mind changed. So that was a lot. Thank you for listening.
Anyone else?
I'll just,
Angie?
I think I'm going to want to come back maybe another time, but just in response, I don't think we have 2 to 3 years to wait to see if this is working. I think we need to implement this today, now. I agree that literacy and math is part of the end goal, but there's a lot of other ways to put resources that are interrelated, including feeling like students belong and that they're represented. This is one very tangible way that we can make that change. And I'll save my other comments for another time, but thank you. I just wanted to say that in response to your comment, Chris. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'll go one more time. I have a great fear of the budget's what's hanging over. I understand the importance. I have a great fear of losing those extra deans that we have put in at the middle school. We've had some situations this year that if we did not have extra set of hands, we could have had some problems. So when I'm looking at, is it this or is it this? The other part of me says, what's the opportunity cost of not doing this?
Yes.
And when I put it into just dollars and cents, if we get 15 more students enrolled in Oshkosh because people do feel more comfortable in our school district with our plan, we've made up our $140,000 at $9,000 a student. So that's where I'm looking at it, as the opportunity cost of not doing it costs us that much money.
Wow. Yes. And actually,
Mrs. Carlin and then Mrs. Szilagyi.
I'm sorry, you actually reminded me of something that you said during the meeting when I watched it. You said one of the things that you were afraid of is that if we had this position, other people would say, it's not my job, it's somebody else's job. And I agree with you, but I also feel like it does need to be everybody's job, and we have it in every job description now, but this resource would be the leader for it. And so when I look at my notes from tonight and I see some of the things we covered, we had students who read essays about Martin Luther King. We had an update on Vel Phillips, our first school that is named after a person of color. During our career pathway presentation, we learned that only 3 Black students are in experience opportunities. And I feel like that is pulling this position into light for me, because we do need a leader in this area, in my opinion. And Christopher, to your point, I would say Henry Kissinger, the greatest diplomat of all time, once said that peace is not a piece of paper, right? So like a treaty, that's not peace. Peace is actually demonstrating peace and actions speak louder than words. And I feel like equity is like that too. We need action. We can't just say it's everywhere. We need a leader who is going to take us where we need to be. And I feel like the time is right now. This board has made a lot of tough decisions, and I think this is one more. Thank you, Liz.
Mrs. Szilagyi.
Yes. No, I really appreciate what Ms. Wyman brought up about the deans, because as I thought of this, and I thought, spending money on extra administrators, that was one of my biggest concerns too, is that I would prefer, my preference is to have those administrators in our schools, interacting with our students every day, supporting the principals. When we look at this, I'm kind of skipping ahead and including all 3 of the individual resolutions. But when we look at the organization chart as a whole, the things that stood out to me right when I left our meeting last week actually were that in the past 6 years there have been 5 new director positions added. One of them was a bump. It was a position that existed but not at the director level that was bumped up to director. One was added before I was on the board. Another was added that one was before I was on the board. Another one was added as part of the description was that the principal on assignment, formerly principal on assignment, would be someone who could be a substitute for a principal if there was ever a reason for a principal to be out of a building. And I actually saw that happen in my own students' building. There was a medical need, and the principal on assignment stepped in for, I believe, 4 to 6 weeks, and that was so crucial. And so I wonder how changing that role to be a director of elementary schools will impact our ability. So I can see you want to speak to that right now, or I'm guessing you do.
Yeah, I can say under all these positions, there'll be some fine print underneath that says other duties as assigned.
Okay.
And so if we were to get into that situation, one of the advantages we have with having the directors supervising a smaller group of schools is they would be able to serve that role as needed. So that would be one of the things that we would look at. Hopefully we obviously don't get into that, but we would have some flexibility with these positions.
Okay.
To do something like that.
Thank you for helping me see a better picture on that one. But where I was going with all this is just thinking that, we talk about how these positions are to support our principals. And I wonder if we asked our principals, would they feel more supported by having more directors at the top, or do they feel more supported by having deans and assistant principals in their building? And same with our teachers. When Christopher or Mr. Carnes talks about the needs that we know we're going to have coming up for literacy and math, that same feeling comes to me. If we speak to classroom teachers, are they going to say the bigger need is to have more ISTs, people with master's degrees supervising and coaching them, or are they going to say that there's a bigger need for classroom aides to come in and help with that? And I don't know the answers to these questions. It's been a while since I've been a classroom teacher, but these are just things that I think about is what is a district's best use of its budget, of its people, of its resources, to keep putting more at the top, which is what I feel like I've seen over the past 6 years, is my time as a parent in the school district, or to put more people in the buildings with the students. I wish we had unlimited resources and could do both, of course. And I just want to note, in case anyone's listening and feeling like that's a lot to add 5 directors in 6 years, this is happening throughout the country. The federal government, the state governments, they're putting more and more regulations and paperwork and reporting and things on schools, and that creates this need to have directors. So what we're doing is not unique. A lot of school districts have added directors of communication, directors of diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. But that process still just gives me pause. And I believe 2 things can be true at once. As much as I can have pause and concern with adding at the top of a organization instead of supporting at the bottom, I can see exactly what Ms. Lee said, that we don't have 2 years to wait and see if the work we've done in equity is good enough. I love what Ms. Wyman said, that if having a diversity, equity, and inclusive director makes, 5 families to decide to send their 2 to 3 kids into our district, we make up that salary. Thank you for that. I had not thought of that. So like Mr. Carnes, I'm just conflicted here in that I see some concerns that come up for me and some questions that I have about the best ways to support the employees we have who are in the buildings working with students every day. And I also, in my heart, just really want to be able to say yes to this, because I should mention our community members have been so passionate about this and patient. Yes, I have had conversations with some of these community members going back at least 3 years about this, not specifically a director of equity and inclusion, but just about what are we going to do about the results that we have for our Black and brown students. And I would, add that this isn't just about Black and brown students. Inclusion also includes students with IEPs, 504s, special education students, students with social economic disadvantages. I feel like we're talking a lot about how it is an opportunity to help our Black and brown students, and that is where I see the biggest priority. But it benefits all of our students. And as a father said in the listening session today, it even benefits the white students, because he gave an example that his son spends some time at school stressing about how his Black peers are treated in the classroom. I wish everyone could have heard what he said, because I just felt like that was a really good point, that this isn't a job we're making just to benefit a small segment of our students. It is to lift all students, which is what our focus always is. So those are just the thoughts I've been processing in the past week, and I wanted to share them with my fellow board members and the community.
Can I ask a question to Dr. Davis? So we are merging schools and kind of consolidating. Is there a potential savings on staffing with that? I mean, obviously there would be. Has that been kind of thought or projected out as to hiring in other positions and things like that?
Yeah, we don't have final projections on that, but that's part of the staffing process that we're going through right now. And when we look at FTE that are combined, certainly there'll likely be some savings. We're certainly, from the very beginning, as we talked about consolidation, the idea is the staff follow the students, right, as we're moving forward. So that will happen. Now, we know when we have less students, and as I've said, we've lost 700 students from 2017 to now. So that's part of what we're looking at, is making sure we have that ratio set. So there could potentially be some savings in there. We don't have the definitive number on that yet. We're still working through that process. That'll be, something that we'll do through the middle of April and have it you in May.
Okay. You about to talk? Look like you hadn't talked yet, so I'll let you go.
No, I've been thinking about this for, a while. And Oshkosh schools, our demographics are changing at a drastic pace. We went from 30% black and brown students 2 years ago to 34%, I believe, this past year. At that rate, we're going to be above 50% in 3 years. And every report we get, we find issues with our black and brown students not having as many opportunities or not being enrolled in as many classes. And I mean, with the change that's occurring in this city, which is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful opportunity, how do we reach our goals if we don't connect the dots with all these issues we continually talk about? And I do have, I was contacted by a number of teachers, and there's people are worried about what's going to happen with the state budget and how do we fund this or that, and those are unknown things. And I wish that those things were known. But what's not unknown is that Oshkosh is changing at a rapid pace, and that we need to have solutions in place so that every kid can get the right amount or get a good education. That is not unknown. And how we do that could be debatable. But certainly we need to make an effort to understand where everyone's coming from and what everyone's needs are and how to bridge gaps. And I don't know, how to do that myself. And I mean, at least not fully. I can listen, whatever, but there comes a point in time, I guess, when we need to think about things a little differently and come up with some different answers and solutions. And me being new to this, well, not new to this position anymore, I guess, but new to, I guess, equity-based issues in general. I've learned a lot in the past 2 years, as far as fees, as far as not every kid has the same chance. I often look at my kids and they're pretty lucky, but we go to a lot of places in this community on a regular basis where other kids don't have those support systems. And if we're really going to figure this out and figure out how to be a great school district, we need to really work on bridging all those gaps. And there's a lot of barriers there that's showing in a lot of data. So sorry for the long-winded conversation, but those are my thoughts.
I think we're all
Thank
a
you.
little bit long-winded
Yeah.
tonight. I will weigh in shortly. Mr. Carnes.
Yeah, I still go back to, I think everybody sitting around this table and understands that our equity work is important. It's why I think it was number one on our list of requirements when we hired a superintendent. I think we're just trying to understand what the right path is going forward. Is this the right path? Because I know, as Mrs. Lee had said, we don't have a couple of years to wait, but We also don't have a couple years to wait for our literacy scores to get better, but we have to have patience in what we have changed, because we're not going to see the scores we just saw a couple months ago were from last school year. So if we're always reactive to a problem that we never give time to see if what we put into it changes, then we're always going to be making those decisions every year. And that's where I think there's multiple ways to attack this. I just don't know if this is the right way. And other people can vehemently deny that, argue against me and say that I'm wrong, and I'm okay with that. I just don't know if that's the right method. Because I know that you have made changes. You have opportunity to hire a couple new people. You have principals in place, and I've asked you that question at these meetings. You have the right people in the right places, and you think you do. And so that's what you're here for. And if you have those places ready to go, and it's filtering down to the places it needs to, I struggle. I struggle if that's the right path. I know there's an issue. I know we need to attack it. I just don't know if this is the right way.
Yeah, just quickly, I'll just say that I wouldn't have put this position forward as an option if I didn't think it was going to make an impact. Like this is a position that I spent some time on, and I know it was a quick turnaround, but I've also, from my experiences, have done a lot of research, a lot of conversations with school board members, other school districts, municipalities, counties. They've done a lot of work around diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I was intentional about the way that I put this position together, to know that if the board wants to support this position, I am very confident it'll make a positive impact for our kids and families in Oshkosh. So I wouldn't put together just a position without knowing that that's the case. Are there multiple ways to move forward? Absolutely. If the board votes no tonight, are we moving forward with our equity work? Absolutely, we are. But again, I feel that this position does make us stronger, the way that it was positioned, and also the way that we'll administer it, moving forward, to making sure that everybody is lifting along with this new leadership that we'd have an opportunity to work with.
Are we able potentially to, as well with this position, but also, obviously this is going to come down to dollars, also prioritize what we committed to last year, which is the literacy and math, and knowing that there's going to have to be a lift in those areas too?
Yeah, so it's loud and clear through the board's work and in passing policies that we have marks that we need to get to. So as we're doing our prioritization administratively and looking at staff opportunities, literacy and math are certainly at some of the very top of our priorities, and also looking at, from in previous conversations tonight related to the deans of students and the support for school safety, is also one of our top priorities. So again, I want to make sure that the board understands that these are things that we are spending a lot of time talking about, and that we value. We've also talked about communication support. There's a lot of things that would go into that, but our priority is to make sure that we continue to move forward. And again, I appreciate the board's clarity on the literacy progress specifically, because that allows us as an administrative team not to question whether or not it's a priority, right? That it's made very clear. And so to answer your question, yes, that's been something that continues to be a consideration.
Thank you.
With all this emphasis on literacy and math.
Could you just speak a little bit louder,
sure.
Mrs. Lee?
Yes.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. Thank you.
This emphasis on literacy and math, research shows that when you have people that in positions that look like our students, that does impact scores positively. It's research-based. And this is an opportunity for our board to directly impact that. I would imagine that this DEI director would be a person from a diverse background. That is one very tangible way we can show that we are supporting these efforts. And my observation when I went to the WASB convention, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, was that there were not many school board members that looked like me either. So at every position, we need to be considering how we bring in more diverse talent and diverse perspectives. It's not taking away from our literacy and math efforts to put in this position. In fact, it would only enhance and improve those efforts. Research also shows not just the representation, but when we value children's cultural identities, that also impacts a sense of belonging, a sense of their worth and identity, and that also impacts literacy scores. So I don't want us to think that only literacy efforts have to look a certain way. This position would facilitate those literacy efforts or those math efforts.
Absolutely.
Since every board member has had a chance to weigh in, I'd like to weigh in at this point. I've given this a lot of thought also, and I'm convinced that we need this position. Throughout our board policies, we refer to continuous improvement, so I don't want any of my comments following this to be interpreted as being critical of any individual or any group, but in the spirit of continuous improvement and how can we move forward is at least my intent. I also look at this, as Mrs. Wyman does, as the opportunity cost of not filling this. I've been on the board for 10 years. Previous boards have talked about equity. We've not moved the needle. If you go back to the November board meeting where we saw data which was disaggregated by free and reduced lunch, special needs, students of color. There were some other groups too that right now escape me. Those gaps are 20 to 40%. These students are performing at lower rates. To me, that is not acceptable. We talk about being a district of destination. How can we do that? How can we show that Oshkosh is an accepting community when we think those gaps are okay? Again, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm just stating that as a fact. We haven't had anybody at the top leading this effort. It's not been in anyone's job description that I'm aware of. So I like the fact that it's been embedded in each of the job descriptions in central office, but I don't think that's enough. I haven't seen the needle move in nearly 10 years. That's a long time. So the kindergartner who's now in 10th or 11th grade and shows up on the screen as being in one of those marginalized groups, I think there are reasons for that. We've moved the needle. We've done a great job in the area of technology because we've had a deputy superintendent who has an extraordinary knowledge base and skills base, and even though that's not his sole responsibility, has moved the district and has been very proactive in putting us on the cutting edge, some would say the bleeding edge, of technology as compared to other districts in the state of Wisconsin. But we've not had a dedicated person for equity. I agree with Mrs. Lee. I believe that this position would allow us to move the needle on the math and the literacy that in ways it hasn't been done. As I've been talking with some community folks lately, they've been telling me they're interested in improving student results on standardized tests and our literacy. I believe this position would help us to do that because it could work with those directors of elementary and secondary education and show them ways that we can differentiate instruction to meet the needs of the students who are struggling. Our 2019 to 2024 strategic plan on the left-hand side has a column related to academics, and the item at the top of that list is showing evidence that we're closing the opportunity gap. I haven't seen that. We pointed it out that it's a problem, but I haven't seen real results that narrow those 20 to 40% gaps that we saw in the data that was presented to us last November. When we hired Dr. Davis back in May of 2021, we said, as I viewed it, there were two main priorities that we defined, and two of you defined those last week. And one of those was equity, and the other one was literacy. And we've done some great work, I think, in terms of hiring some people, bringing in more emphasis on the science of reading. but we haven't done the same thing in equity. John Ashley, the executive director of the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, defines a moral imperative. We have a moral imperative to educate all students. Those gaps show me we're not where we need to be. And we talk about all means all. Can we really be serious about that when we have these opportunity gaps and we're not closing them? And we have students struggling and they can't meet the requirements to go into some of the work-based learning opportunities that were described to us tonight in the CTE report. They can't take advanced coursework. We have community members who are tutoring some of our graduates because they can't get into UW Oshkosh because they don't have the necessary skills in literacy and math. I just see this as so critical at this time. Usually I would be the one who would say, well, let's see the big picture as far as other positions to hire. I just feel passionately about this, that we really need this position at this point in time. I'm not putting down any other position. I'm sensitive to the notion of the appearance, the optics of hiring more central office administrators. I've been in that role. I know how some of the people view that out in the community and certainly in the schools, but I really think that we have an obligation to fund this position at this time. So that's where I stand.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to make a couple quick comments to Christopher because I sensed your hesitation. I would encourage you to, or anyone listening, through tomorrow, the movie The Right to Read is free to view. And when I watched that this morning, and when you watch The Right to Read, I think it's very hard to ignore the connection between equity work and literacy scores and improvement. That might help you feel a little bit better. And I just wanted to say thank you to the board members who came tonight knowing how they would vote, because as some of us have said, we weren't sure, and your passionate comments and also the community members' comments have helped me to feel more confident in how I will vote tonight. So thank you to those of you who came in prepared to share your opinion and know how you would vote.
Call the question.
Call it.
All right. We don't need a second for that, do we? No, that's just at the delegate assembly.
Yeah, I'm losing track.
We're in discussion right now, right?
Yeah,
So-
we're in discussion.
Right, we had Carlin.
All right, so
made
the
the motion and Wyman seconded it.
Yep.
So I can do the roll?
Please
Yep.
call the roll.
Carnes.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
I want to thank all the people who wrote to us, who have spoken to us, and I look forward to.
Thank you to the community.
Can I say something to all of you that helped me throughout that conversation? The piece that mattered the most is when we started talking about how it will help literacy. So thank you all for helping me get to that point. And I feel good about that, so thank you.
Let's go get our 15 new students for OASD.
Let's get 30.
All right.
And make up the tech position too.
Thank you all. Okay, so we have two more resolutions before the board gets to go into executive session. Resolution number 3, be it resolved that the Oshkosh area school, thank you, Mrs. Wyman. I'm grateful for your enthusiasm. Approve the new position of Director of Technology as filed with the Secretary of the Board of Education.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Lee.
Aye.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you very much. Resolution number 4, be it resolved that the Oshkosh Area School District Board of Education approve changes to the organizational chart beginning July 1, 2023, with accompanying changes to the corresponding job titles as filed with the Secretary to the Board of Education.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Thank you very much. Request for future agenda items.
Nope.
Announcements.
Nope.
Adjourn to executive session.
Oh, I was
So
so moved.
moved.
One announcement.
Second.
I
I move to waive the reading.
Thank you.
Second. Second for that.
Second.
All right.
Just want to make sure Eileen got the.
I seconded it. Stephanie.
Sorry. Mrs. Szilagyi?
I was going to make an announcement. Is it too late?
Yes. All right, okay, go ahead.
No, it was just from previous comments this evening. I wanted to make sure it was clear and on the record in this meeting that our teachers have a lot of worth and value, and we do not pay them enough. That's my announcement.
Aw.
Thank you.
Good announcement.
Yeah.
It's a good
All right.
announcement.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. We're moving into executive session. Would you please call the roll?
Szilagyi.
Aye.
Wright.
Yes.
Wyman. Aye. Carlin.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Carnes.
See y'all in there.
He went to the bathroom.
Motion carried. This meeting,
Lee.
Aye.
oh, sorry.
Motion carries. We have-
Pass this up,
Meeting
Carl.
adjourned to executive session.
Thank you.
This meeting is adjourned.
We got it done.
I'd forgotten I wanted to make that announcement.